Hello, welcome to our yearly podcast. It seems that we make one every year, only one, but at least this one is super quality made, right?
Oh yeah.
Today here we have our first-time guest, print shoot repeat. We have Ian from Forgotten Weapons and some Chinese guy. I think he delivered food here. Was it Firepower United?
Yes, I bring everyone together in a peaceful way.
I think right now people are just writing in the comments, oh, that's Fuklong.
Either that or Henry from My Home Reviews.
Oh, true. Oh, why doesn't Henry want to join any of the brutalities?
I don't think he likes you guys that much.
Okay.
Henry has children and a work schedule.
Oh.
No, Henry's a good guy. I'm sure he's...
I would love to get Henry out to one of these.
I think he was invited a couple of times. I wanted to get him on Lynx, but yeah, he didn't have time.
What we can do is bring brutality to him and have Houston brutality.
It has to be called Houston Fatality or something like that. Just a little bit because of the trademark of the name, the US. But
competition called Fatality.
You wouldn't get design any stages because the city itself is a
Fatality.
So Lynx Brutality was quite successful, at least from my point of view. From the organization part, this year it was even better, less work, less stressful for me. The ROs did a better job, so we actually finished 20 minutes before time, which is mind-blowing.
Both days.
But I want to hear your opinions, like how did you like it? First, just stage designs and your level of enjoyment, and then we can talk about issues and problems and stuff. What was your favorite stage?
My favorite stage was, I can't remember what number it was. It was stage 3 with the rope. You had
the fast rope.
Yes, yeah, that one. I like the big rope that you have to throw down. That was probably the coolest stage of the match because you don't really see stuff like that in other shooting matches. Maybe occasionally like some of these like super hardcore 3-gun matches, but other than that, you don't really see it. And there's just a lot of targets to shoot at, a lot of transitions. It was a lot of fun. Minus the small little detail where you messed up my gun.
Oh, yeah.
It's unimportant.
Yeah.
No. We won't go in this debate right now, but if you don't know how to shoot, that's your problem. The gun was perfect.
This is your lesson of using borrowed guns.
What I want to ask you is, we were doing that fast rope from the lowest point possible. It goes way to the top, and when people see it from the side in real life or on video, they think that it's like super low. What was your impression when you came to the rope and just before you had to go down?
I looked directly down, which I know you're not supposed to do, but it looks a lot higher than it actually was. So it was kind of scary. Yeah,
this is the response that we got every year. People in the comments think that it's like, oh, this is nothing. But when you're there, everyone had a more serious face on when they had to go down. Yeah, when you go down, when you get the feeling for it, the next time around it's super easy. It's not scary anymore. But if you're doing it the first time, it's a bit of a challenge, right?
Oh yeah.
And this is also the main reason that we are just repeating that stage every year. We're trying to change it a bit, but I think the fast rope is so different and so rare in any other competition that we want to keep it in, and people don't mind. Like we have people that were on all 3 brutalities, they still love that thing. So, what about you?
I loved the competition. It's my second overall brutality, my first Lynx Brutality. The only other brutality I've been to is the Finnish Brutality of 2023. So I didn't have, that's the only reference point I had, and I really liked it. It's definitely different than Finnish Brutality in ways. There's the paper targets, which wasn't really a thing in Finnish Brutality. It was mainly just steel, if I remember, of this past year. So paper targets added a whole different layer of challenge to the whole match for me, especially because I got a bunch of misses, maybe because the rifle wasn't perfectly zeroed. Ziga. But yeah, I'll blame it on that. But I think that was really neat, which actually kind of makes... And a lot of things about brutality that I love is that it just... After I'm done, it gives me a really great idea of what I need to improve on in terms of my shooting, whether it's my shooting or my physical abilities and skills. or in a combination of both. And I think that's one of the best things about it. Or gear too. Like I was so stoked to go through that car stage, which I think was still my favorite one, even though I got the penalty. I was so quick through the car and I was so ready to do that. But my gear is what failed me in that. And, I had this kind of cheap AR mag holder that even with the lugs on your AK, 5.56 AK mags, it didn't stay put when I hit the steering wheel when I went through, and it took off the mag. And so that's what caused me to get a bad score. And I think I was doing the math, and I was 0.02 of a second behind you if I hadn't have gotten that penalty. And we would have been 1 and 2 on that stage.
Should have gone faster.
I know, should have gone faster. When I was in the car, this is when I was in the car, I went to go reach for the mag, and I saw it wasn't there. And so I said, all right, well, I'm just gonna finish the stage. And so then I pulled it out of my chest rig, but I knew that it had fallen out. And instead of going to retrieve it, which in the end probably would have maybe taken a little less than 60 seconds,
Probably a lot less than 60 seconds.
But it was in the first car. So
okay.
It would have been a matter of, I probably could have gotten out. I mean, I was
probably would say like 30 seconds or so.
Yeah.
Even
So
less.
probably
Adrenaline slows it down. You're very fast from car to car because
Yeah.
you're compact size.
Yeah.
So I think you could do it.
Yeah, but overall, I had an absolute blast. I was so grateful and happy that you allowed me and invited me to come to this competition, and I want to come back next year. So I had a great time.
It's addicting, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I'm like, when's the next one?
So I heard that you're a shooter for only 4 years now or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a very anti-gun household, so I had no practice at all, or no, I was not even allowed to have Nerf guns or like GI Joes. That was how strict it was. My dad in particular is very anti-gun. Did not want me to have anything that resembled any kind of a firearm, like violent video games. Nothing like so. I had no practice, no reference point, and then when I got a little bit older, like when I was in college, I would come back to Vermont and I'd have some friends that had guns, and so I would go I maybe shot a gun maybe 3 or 4 times before the PSR stuff started to happen. And so that whole story is kind of a long story, but I can just make it brief. But during COVID, during the 2020 being locked in because of the pandemic, I had a very strange situation with my neighbor where he said some very scary, threatening stuff. And so I felt like I needed to have a way to defend myself other than I had a shotgun at the time. So it was just like a 28-inch barrel skeet shooting shotgun. So that's the first gun I ever got. And that was just like I took it to the range 2 or 3 times and did skeet.
You should shorten the barrel of that shotgun.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit.
Yeah, you just use a hacksaw, cut it down, and then your dog dies.
Yeah, exactly.
Get it down to 17.99 inches.
Well, the thing is, you can cut it down 10 inches and it's still a legal shotgun. That's how long it was. So this guy came outside my house and was like, he's mentally ill and having an episode, said some scary stuff. And I was like, I have a shotgun, but I have no ammo for it or anything. And I was like, what do I do? Because I was just like, kind of like, the last thing you want to do is last thing I want to do is shoot anyone, period. That's like last resort, obviously. So this guy said some weird stuff about my girlfriend at the time, very strange. So I was like, I need to have a way to protect myself. So I went and got a Glock, and I got a 17 Gen 4, and then I got an AR, which is really stupid. It was like a 7.5-inch barrel AR. Because I was like, okay, that looks like it's like a tactical gun, right? So I didn't know anything about guns, really. So here I am.
You bought the flashbang.
I bought the flashbang, because I did the meme, and I bought the flashbang as my first AR. So, and then from there, I kind of just started to tinker with the guns, and I went to the range here and there and started to tinker around with them, take them apart, and I was really interested into how they worked. I started watching your videos, and
Nice.
and it's because I was just like kind of started to get into the, all the little intricacies about firearms design and stuff, and I thought it was really interesting. So then I watched a documentary about Jay Stark, the guy that was designing the FGC-9 and testing it in Europe and very illegal stuff, but he had this kind of belief that everyone should be able to defend themselves and stuff. So I thought that was really interesting, and the fact that you could 3D print them was really cool, and the fact that it was legal to do in the U.S. I was like, well, I want to try this. So I went and bought a basic 3D printer, the Ender 3, and I printed my first Glock frame after doing some test prints, took it to the range, and filmed it. My buddy was there, and he filmed it, and then I did a little edit with my music and put it on YouTube, and then people really responded to it. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll make some more content. So then I started to, really get into shooting because I was kind of just like testing these guns. So, but as far as like seriously shooting, I don't think it was really until I moved to my place where I'm at now, where I have this range that I can go shoot at like pretty, consistently without any kind of, I can have the range to myself. So that has been about 2.5 years. So yeah, so consistent shooting has been about 2.5 years, but since I started getting into guns,
how did you get to this level? Because people maybe don't know that from your videos because you're always like doing fun and stupid stuff, which is super entertaining. But like this is your second brutality, and even in Finland, like you did amazing. Okay, yeah, you get penalties, you get stuff, but you know how to move, you know how to handle firearms, you know how to hit stuff.
Yeah.
And even under pressure, which like realistically, even if you put some really good precision or practical sport shooters and push them into a brutality match, like a lot of them choke up. It's not easy,
Yeah.
But like for you, it looks like it's natural. So.
Yeah, well, I guess when I get into something, I become really obsessed with it, and I think you guys can all relate to that. When I get into whether it's like riding motorcycles, which is another passion of mine, or just like cars, motorcycles in general, but like when I get into something, I research and I practice, and I become unhealthily obsessed with it, which is probably why I'm not in a relationship anymore, because I tend to put that stuff kind of ahead of everything else in life, for better or for worse. But when it comes to shooting, I would just, whether it was just like looking at YouTube videos or just practice and seeing what worked and what didn't. I mean, I had some friends that were better shooters than I. I mean,
did you take any shooting classes?
No,
Yeah.
never. I've never taken any shooting classes. I feel like I'm stronger. It's interesting because this last stage of finished brutality, the 10th one, which was going underneath the sandbags over the obstacle, then you dip under and you're going back and forth between the targets. That's the stage I did the best on. So I think I got 9th overall on that stage in finished brutality, and then this stage, and then in this competition, I think I got 8th overall on the last stage with the rope and the pistol. So I feel like the pistol for me, the pistol only stages, I do the best on, except for the 5th stage, because the offhanded shooting was really hard. So, and that's an example where this trip, this brutality I learned, that's a skill that I need to get better at, is the offhanded shooting, because I was totally, while I was so super tired, I was shaking, I could see the dot just like moving. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm gonna pull the trigger now, even though I don't know where that's gonna land. And that's where I got the penalties on the last stage. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of just becoming obsessed with something, and in this case, shooting, and I'm just getting a lot of practice. And luckily, I've had some ammo sponsors and stuff, so I can afford to put a lot of rounds down range to get that under my belt. Yeah.
That's quite the answer. Thank you. We have the beginning story of your channel and everything.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. Like that's good info. Why I ask is because there are a couple of mentalities. When I started shooting a lot, or maybe not when I started shooting, when we started to post videos about shooting publicly on YouTube. Like a lot of people ask, like, where did I learn shooting? Like, did I take classes? It was like the military. No, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And actually, YouTube can help a lot if you know what to look for. Because like if you just look at some instructional videos, it's sometimes even less beneficial than if you look at someone that shoots good and you are able to analyze it or try to mimic it, or you have self-reflection. For example, like if you film yourself and then watch it at home and figure out what are your weaknesses.
Totally, and that's one thing when you're on YouTube, when I'm reviewing, because I edit all my videos, so when I'm seeing in slow motion when I'm shooting a pistol and I anticipate, because in slow motion it's like totally, you're able to see it. So
actually we had a really good live stream this year on Lynx Brutality. You could see that on the slow-mo footage.
Yeah.
Not for you, but I saw it from one of the girls. Like weak hand, and it was like,
Yep.
and then pressing the trigger, and of course that goes way off target.
Yeah, and people think that it's because you're the motion of pulling the trigger, but it's just purely anticipation of the recoil. That's really all it is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there are a lot of factors, but
Yes,
for,
but generally,
for a lot of people, mostly it's the anticipation.
Yeah. It's usually from the tension of like squeezing your hands because you're trying to fight that recoil.
Yeah.
So when you do squeeze your fingers really hard, it actually brings the gun down because you're squeezing these three fingers here. So
There are, I think, three major things here. Oh fuck, we're going fully.
we're gonna go too autistic.
we're going fully acoustic here. No, but yeah.
Ben Stoger.
Yeah, one is actual anticipation and flinch, which like especially new shooters, they know like they shoot a couple rounds and they know it will go boom, and they flinch. They kind of do this because they know that it's coming and they want to counter it, but way too fast. Then you have the other one where people want to counter the recoil, but they're like shooters for a long time and they know that like they're not afraid of the explosion and the sound, but they want to counter the recoil, but they time it wrong, so they do this before the gun goes off, and that can also happen to really good shooters if they change handguns, because some of the handguns have different walls, different triggers, and you can do that, but you can kind of adjust. And the third one is also what like Kelvin said, we don't have muscles in our fingers and hands. You have muscles here and tendons here, so if you squeeze a lot, like a lot of movements can happen that you do not want to control. For example, like if I want to squeeze only these two fingers, you see like these start to pull because a lot of it is connected. So if you squeeze a lot, you will introduce movement in the gun, and if you like tighten your muscles and fingers and everything too much, it can also influence on your trigger finger. But honestly, I would say that these are much smaller than the first two. So like anticipation or trying to gain the recoil to like in the wrong timing. But Kelvin, what do you think?
I think we went way too far off the deep end on that. That's more different kind of podcast.
What I love about you is like you shoot good, I shoot good. We look at a certain thing, and you have quite the opposite opinion of that I do. Like for example, like
which one?
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
I can't stand that phrase. I know why people say it, but what happens is when you say slow is smooth, smooth is fast, people think to do everything slow.
I know. I completely understand your view, and I also agree. I also support the saying slow is slow, fast is fast.
Yeah.
But why I also like that is, especially with newer shooters, what I see is they try to go fast too soon, too early, and it doesn't matter how fast you press the trigger if you don't hit the target. And then if they just slow down just a little bit, get more control of the gun, and get all of them in the target, they are a bit slower, but at the end, like they benefit more. For example, like in the Brutality, you could be as fast as possible, but then miss the target. It's like that's worse than going a bit slower and hitting it. But yeah, I understand. Yeah, but just it seems.
You know how you fix that? You get better new shooters.
Yeah.
I think it's just smooth is fast. Period. Like
You could be smooth and slow.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well.
Anyway, we should probably get back on track.
I don't know what's track.
Whatever track is.
Whatever interests us.
You had a
Ian,
bunch of you had a bunch of Virginia count stuff in this match where you're required to get X hits and you only have X number of rounds in the magazine.
Is that called Virginia count?
Yeah, I think, right?
It is.
Yes.
Well,
totally.
Neat.
depending on where you go, but yes, common. Yeah, the common term is Virginia count.
In particular, some of the paper targets where, because they're short bays here, this facility only has one moderate length bay. And so you're trying to use a bunch of shorter bays with rifle, but they're too short for steel. So I like the way you've adapted that and used often very small, like micro IPSC targets as steel. And the way they're generally run is like you have to put 10 or 20 or 30 rounds on that paper target. And then in between shooters, instead of taping them, the ROs just pull the whole target down, count it, and put a new target up. But that's a really good way to force people to go fast through a physical obstacle and then go, not necessarily slow, but go effectively through the shooting.
That
Shoot
was
as fast as you
that was
can.
an issue for a lot of people because they don't know when they have to slow down.
Right.
I think that like going a bit faster, but the penalty for missing at the brutality is 60 seconds.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy long. It's 1 minute.
Yeah.
You know, and to get good hits, you take a second more, maybe.
Right.
It feels way longer to you because you're under adrenaline, but it takes just a fraction of a second more. It's better to have controlled hits and actually hit it.
Yeah.
And I really like that aspect. My favorite stage of the match was the tunnel stage, where there was this blind tunnel device contraption with doors on all the ends, and you had to go in it and navigate through chains and tubes and obstacles inside. So it was an agility challenge, which I really like. And then on one side, you had a tiny IPSC paper target that you had to hit with rifle at short range, which means you also need to know your holdovers, because if you held center of that target, pretty good chance you were going to miss low. And then on the other side of this tunnel was a pistol target that was, I don't know, about that big, and at 30 yards, 30 meters.
Kinda, yeah. I think even less for the tunnel stage. It was the same
That's
target,
true,
same place. I think it was like 25 meters, but more people missed at that stage than the one day previous. We used the same target, but we were like 3 meters even further.
But when it was farther away, you weren't limited. You could shoot as much as you wanted until you hit it.
True.
This one, you came out of that tunnel panting, covered in bruises from clambering over stuff. And now it is, you have 5 rounds in your pistol, and you have to make 5 hits on that target. Slow down, control your breathing, control your trigger press. And like I was helping doing the commentary for a while, and I watched like 2 whole squads go through, and nobody shoot that pistol target clean.
Yep.
A few 9 out of 10s. You had to do it twice. So 5 rounds in one mag, 5 rounds in a second. And that was, to me, that was both a really fun stage and a really good example of balancing the different aspects of a brutality match.
Yeah, what I like about the paper targets for the rifle was that the accountability was all on the shooter, and you couldn't rely on the RO to call your hits or misses for you. So it was up to you to decide whether you hit or miss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing about the brutality matches that I quickly learned that is just, like you said, super important, is to take your time because of the penalties. The penalties, like, I don't think people realize when they watch a match how it's scored necessarily, but the penalties will make or break your entire performance.
You know, it's funny, I will often say that if you can complete a brutality match with no penalties and without timing out on any stages, you'll definitely be in the top 10%. You'll probably be in the top 3.
Yep.
And I looked at the scores at the end of this one. You know how many people met that criteria? 0.
Zeros.
Even the number 1 overall shooter in the whole match, he didn't par out on any stages, but he did have a penalty.
1 penalty, yeah, I saw that. Yep, yeah. And Calvin, you did a great job of not having that many penalties, I realized. I looked at your score and you had minimal penalties.
Most of mine are on one stage,
Yeah.
which was Ian's favorite stage,
Yes.
and my least favorite stage.
Yes. I was thinking you were going to nail all of those with the pistol, but
I was so flustered from trying to climb over all those obstacles and getting stuck.
yeah.
So when I got out to the pistol, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make up for how long I got stuck in there by shooting faster.
Yeah.
And that strategy does not work
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah.
How appropriate, because your favorite stage was my least favorite with the fast rope.
Oh, really?
Yes, because I did the ultimate stupid on that. You go down the rope, shoot some stuff, and then you run back up the tower and go down the rope again. And I ran up the tower and I ran right back down the stairs in the tower.
Oh, no.
And out the front, and I got like halfway back to the shooting position before I'm running, and I'm like, wow, everyone's screaming at me. I wonder what... Oh, the rope. So back up, down.
Yeah.
And ended up parring out and leaving some targets.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that's one thing that I feel like I had a goal in coming here. The second brutality match I've ever done was to try to not par out on any of the stages, which I parred out on, I think, 3 of the finished brutality ones. So that I did achieve. And so I think it's cool to be able to come from, having the first brutality match or the 6th, 7th, whatever it is, and your next brutality match, you set a goal and you can try to achieve that goal, whether it's just something with your gear or something with your performance or whatever it is. It's just a great way to just kind of measure your performance and feel good about it.
But you came from 40 years of shooting and you didn't do any competition before?
None.
Okay, so no competition and directly to brutality
TST,
match.
Brutality
Shit,
with
okay,
Welcome to the
debrief
deep end.
Yeah, but that's why I'm so amazed by your performance, because you did well, you didn't DQ. Yeah. You didn't
Not
DQ.
This
Doesn't.
this time I felt like I was very good with the safety on.
Yeah. I think in Finland, it was your first match, and you had
I had one
bit
moment.
of
One moment. We'll
one
leave it
moment
at
that we solved very
Yeah.
quickly, and that
Yeah.
was okay. But still, how would you gauge this? Because there's a big debate on internet, some people are very into tactical stuff, and also ex-military or active military police, and a lot of them think that competitions are just some sporty stuff, and they do not help you out in any way. Maybe even make your shooting, or I don't know, your defensive capabilities worse.
So when it comes to the military and law enforcement side and whether it would make you better or worse, it's hard for me to imagine it making a shooter or someone who's in the military or law enforcement worse doing a brutality match. I think practicing, getting down and putting a shot on target as quick as possible cannot be a bad skill to practice or to just, train with. I think whether or not it's it's definitely not a simulation of any kind of military engagement per se. I don't think. I mean, I've never been in the military, never been in law enforcement, so I'm not the guy to ask for that. But I think that it's training really important skills with physical, ability to run around and test your cardio as well as your focus and shot placement. That's all important stuff, I think, for any shooter, whether it's in a competition setting or military setting. Yeah.
I think a lot of the people who are concerned that competition will hinder real life performance are looking at elements like, you're training yourself to only shoot at cardboard shaped objects, and it's so different than shooting at a person that it'll actually cause you problems if you have to shoot a person, or sometimes the 180 sort of safety rules of you're practicing these weird positions if you're moving up range, and that's detrimental. In reality, I think the biggest benefit you get from competition shooting is just adding familiarity with firearms to the point that you require less of your immediate conscious attention to do gun things. You look at a new shooter and it takes all of their focus often just to close the slide on a new magazine. Or to I have to reload it. Okay, that's this thing, and then and even as you get more experienced, some of that you can automate. But what especially a brutality match will help you do as you compete is really automate those tasks. And it's okay, so I need to run to there and identify this thing, and I'm just changing the magazine while I'm doing that. And I think that will translate really well into all sorts of real world experience. And frankly, we've seen examples of Tier 1 Special Forces units bringing in specialist shooters for training. Guys who are doing the super fast, Grandmaster level USPSA stuff that definitely isn't specifically applicable to combat. But what they're doing is adding tools, they're adding habits and familiarity with the guns, and that all blends together into a more competent shooter in any situation.
And we're having more guys coming out from the SOF communities that are Grandmasters. So they're taking the time to train to become one, and they're teaching those skills to other guys in their units.
Yep, but when they come from SF and go into shooting sports, where are they?
Probably a mid-level. If
You have better shooters than we do, yeah. Because it's the reality is that military, police, and even special forces, a rifle and the pistol, those are just two of the tools. They're not that important. They have so much other stuff, and they are specialists in communication, in, I don't know, evasion, recon, camouflage, hiking, like a lot of things, and shooting is just a part of it. And people think because of the movies and I don't know, like internet and everything else, that they are one of the best. The reality is that they are not. If they're not shooters before they join, if they are not practicing shooting on their own, they're just not on the same level, you know. And some of them are. Some of them really are good shooters, and I think even a couple of competitors right now that are ex-special forces or ex-military, like they are top of the line, but not because of the service, you know. What I wanted to say is that people that have the opinion that competition shooting is somehow detrimental to any of your skills never did competition. I can guarantee you.
Or they got clapped, and then they're mad.
Yeah.
Well, you know, shooting and combatives are two different things. Like,
look, yeah, but that's one of the things. Again, Kelvin will love this. You have a saying, "Train like you fight," right? Again, that's also a saying that I agree with, but also do not agree with. The idea behind this is that you have to train in the exact way as you fight, right? Because that will prepare you for whatever. But in reality, that's never the case. First thing, you cannot replicate combat. Even military combat shooting, I did it. It's bullshit. Brutality can prepare you better for combat than that thing, because it has to be super safe and it has to be super organized, and people with flags are there and they like kind of put you in line, and now you shoot, guys, stop shooting. You have to stop, and then they kind of get you to other position like you're doing assault. It's very controlled and very not realistic. That's not real combat. But you know, like some people think, I guess that's it. What really is more important is that you train certain parts of it. For example, why would let's say not brutality, because brutality is even higher, but let's say IPSC match or USPCA match. How would that prepare you better for combat? You use a rifle in combat, but you go to USPCA match with a pistol. First thing that it will do, you will get an immediate adrenaline rush and like that fight or flight response when you will be put on a stage. People will be watching you, you'll get on a timer, and you will have to perform. And that gets you in that kind of adrenaline response that it's hard to replicate, even in training on the range or in the military or anywhere else, because just on you. And how you react, how you channel that, that's actually a really good response for combat or defensive situation or anything else, you know. If you can focus and do that in training, in a competition, that will help you. Like if someone breaks into your house at 3 a.m. and attacks you with a knife, like you get this dump of adrenaline, flight or fight response, and it's very similar. If you know how to focus, to then, I don't know, like get the gun, get the sights up, press the trigger, or for example, like you have a malfunction, so you have enough training that you can recognize, oh, it's not shooting, or they're just like doing this, but it's not shooting, I have to repair it, and then go, boom. I think that's the thing. And now, of course, like people have then other arguments, but I would say it like this: look at top sports, or look at stuff where people have to perform, like Formula One. Does their training consist of just racing around?
No.
They're training for racing around the track as fast as possible. Their training consists of so many things, of fitness, of agility, of reflexes.
Yes,
like they break it down in all of these things, they focus it, they train them, and then of course they have to combine them, but you know, they are not like trained to fight and just racing around, and that's the training, you know.
Yeah.
And it's the same for basketball, for football, for everything, you know. It's so much stuff, and then they combine it together, and shooting is just a part of it. And competitive shooting is really good because you have rules. Yes, I agree that there are kind of no rules in combat, but it's way easier that if you have to perform somewhere and follow all the rules, and you go into combat and the rules are not there. It's easier to do that than the reverse. But what I want to say is that the part of shooting that you have to do in competition will improve your overall shooting and overall capabilities of your gun manipulation, your awareness, and all of the other factors that cannot. I do not see any way how that would be detrimental to any of your abilities.
Agreed.
Yeah, like one of the basics of any practical shooting competition is once you decide to shoot at a target, you want to present your firearm as quickly as possible and then shoot it as quickly as possible without deviating the gun from the target. That is exactly what you see in like these police videos where they'll have a suspect who charges at them with a gun or a knife. Cop draws a gun, and you can tell they haven't trained it very much, so they fumble the draw, they don't get their grip, and then they start mag dumping and miss the entire target the whole entire time.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is talking about experience in shooting and stuff, and how I don't have very much experience. You have definitely some experience, and Calvin has a lot of experience. In the force on force stuff that we did, we're just practicing with the training rounds, the AirX MTX. You, I noticed, were really competent, and you had a ton of skill when it compared to me, because we did a back-to-back turnaround, and you hit me twice right in the chest, right A zone, perfect. Like I was trying to move, and I missed both times. And it's that I don't have any military experience, you don't have any military experience, but you have competition shooting experience, and you absolutely wrecked me. So there's an example.
Just to include the context. Yeah, I love this topic. So yesterday, one day after Brutality, I organized something and I took all of the YouTubers, gun tubers, to a facility in Slovenia that's run by Black Bear Solutions. And AREX provided their MTX ammo and training guns. So that's similar to Simunition, a bit improved. So essentially use real guns with training ammo, and you can safely shoot each other. You need to have mandatory protective gear. It's quite powerful. I think we all
we've
felt
all got
it.
some welts.
But it's relatively safe. So what we did, all of these three guys have no experience with force on force or CQB. And we kind of just pushed them in a situation, and Yadi was playing the up 4. What I learned from all of that is that you all actually did great, but especially I was so surprised that Calvin did even better than I expected, because you're a sport shooter. You never cared about tactics. You don't do any of this stuff. I guess you never trained CQB, or maybe you were in what class? Or?
I took one class, an 8-hour class, real quick from a local SWAT guy.
I guess that helped because not just that you were you took the initiative. You start to communicate. We have you on video how you pick the corners. That was super awesome, and I can be very confident in saying that all of your most of your haters on Instagram, I doubted anyone even did proper force on force like this, and I doubted anyone could actually rival you, or just they write all kinds of comments, about you shooting airsoft and you don't know shit about guns and stuff, but you can hold your own.
Calvin knows how to bait
guys.
people.
Yeah.
You know how to bait people too, though, at the same time.
He does it intentionally, but no, that's a high praise, because you were not in the military, you were not in police, you never did tactics stuff, and you're just a good shooter. And so you were not worried about the shooting part.
Nope,
you were very accurate. You did everything.
Yeah.
You just had to. For you, it was easier because you just had to do some extra stuff about communicating and using covers, and moving a bit. For someone for example, if we use a couple of soldiers. Let's say, I don't want to mention any military, but normal soldiers. Usually, they're super bad with handguns. And if we would put them in this situation, they would have extra things to think of. Not just, tactics and moving, oh fuck, how do I aim with this gun? Why is it not shooting? Oh, is it the safety on? Do I have to reload? And this kind of thing. Why am I missing, right?
Never occurred to my thought process about how to operate the firearms.
Yeah.
So 100% of my brain's capabilities were used towards the actual maneuvering through the buildings and looking for targets and no shoots and stuff. But when I did do the little bit of CQB stuff, you're not always in these ideal shooting positions, and I feel like if you do competition shooting, it does force you to shoot from all these strange shooting positions you wouldn't do unless you were forced to. And if you're shooting on your own, it's very unlikely that you will try to do these things.
Agreed.
I mean, you said you came from not shooting any competitions. Did you ever shoot from unconventional positions by yourself because you're like, you know what, let's try shooting weak hand, sideways and curled up in a ball?
No, aside from the memes of sticking the gun like where my dick is and shooting it like that, no. So that's one of the things I realized during Finnish Brutality, like when we had the packs on, when we had to walk up the stairs and put through the barricade with the pack on and try to get through the sights with the barricade sideways, like totally never had done that before, and that really like opened my mind, like, okay, wow, I could totally train like and try to be better at this. And I was better in the barricade, even though we excluded that stage. I was better at the barricade this time around. So yeah.
The barricade was made by me. It was made specifically to be as hard as possible. Okay, not as hard as possible, but it was made properly. So first, the holes were not big enough that anyone could just like push the gun through.
Yeah.
Because last year, guys kind of cheated like that. They pushed the gun through or used their muzzle brake for a couple of shots. It like opened up the hole and then just pushed the whole gun through and just aimed normally.
Oh.
Now we had a very narrow slit and one was like horizontal. So it forced you, if you have optics or sights on your gun, you had to turn
Cant it. Yeah.
canted. I think the distance was not far enough that would make a difference. Well, it did change point of impact, but not enough that you would be off target.
Yeah.
But if we shot at 100 meters,
Oh yeah.
people would also have to consider that, otherwise they would be missing. But even that was just too much for a lot of people. And the VTEC barricade for handgun, also problems for a lot of people, because it actually forced them to can the gun, to see the sights and to shoot. And that's why people timed out on that stage. Not because of the electricity or the weights or whatever. No, the shooting part got them.
A lot of people have a really hard time shooting pistols prone.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it should be difficult, but it is.
Yeah. That's why I noticed it on the tunnel stage. Some people were shooting prone with their pistol, which was interesting, or it's because they're just tired. And some people got up standing, but I noticed that knees for me was like immediately, okay, I'm going to be on my knees because it just is very similar to standing up, and it felt honestly the best.
Yeah,
I don't know
me
about
too.
you. You shot on your knees. Everyone shot on their knees, right?
Yep, I use my knees.
Yeah. So yeah, being on our knees is something we're totally not familiar with.
Okay. In one of the afternoon squads, our friend Luka shot. He's an ex-Special Forces guy from Slovenian military. He actually did really well. His times were great. He shot with a rifle superb. He's also a civilian sport shooter, so he also owns guns. He was okay with a pistol, but the biggest problem was weak hand. And we had 2 or 3 stages with weak hand. And like he told me, never train that. Like, it of course it also doesn't make that much sense for Special Forces guys. Even like pistols are sidearms, they're like secondary. You'd never want to use it. It's just there because it's better than a knife, In reality, the main gun is your rifle. So yeah, it's the reality of things. Like if you're in military or some kind of forces, that does not automatically mean that you're good with guns or that you are safe with guns or that you're expert in any way.
And vice versa, just because you're a competition shooter doesn't mean you're good with guns.
Oh, true. That's true.
There's people who show up all the time and they just don't get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have people that think that they can buy skill. So they buy the most expensive stuff and all of the gear and equipment and still fail.
Yeah, participation isn't necessarily training.
True.
Very true.
Okay, so let's talk more about Force on Force because it was super interesting.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
I suck at it, but it was still really fun.
Same.
It did hurt.
Yeah, it did hurt. But let's say, okay, so you had kind of two jobs, or you did it twice. It was the team of Calvin, Ian, PSR, and Bloke on the range. And at first run, you had a building, and you had to eliminate the targets. How was that?
That made me want to never, ever actually do real CQB. My feeling coming out of that was almost no matter how good you are, like assaulting a barricaded gunman in a structure is a roll of the dice. The better you are, like the lower the number it's going to take before you just get shot and you're dead now.
Yeah.
But it's always a roll of the dice because like you go through that corner, any corner, and there just might be someone there. And if there's someone there and they know you're coming in or they just happen to be lucky, blam, and you just ate a bullet.
Yeah, because that's because you're expendable, and that's why you have a team behind you. That's the reality. Like that's why it's not one person CQB. But what I wanted to compare is your first run where you only had metal targets inside. It went way faster, way smoother.
Oh yeah.
You cleared it, perfect, great. And then we put Yari in, and his instructions were like, you have a gun, but just like respond to what they do. Don't shoot them immediately, and just like create problems. So he actually responded on the way how you gave commands and what you did. Because I told him like if you will be very aggressive and if you will be, I don't know, you dominate him, like he surrenders. If not, he will shoot back or run away or so on. So that was different because you needed, I think, like 10 minutes just to clear the first room.
Yes,
and then
we had an extended negotiation with a chair.
Yeah, about 5 minutes. Yeah, until we opened the door, and then you went forward.
Yeah, he leaned a chair up against the door, so like we pushed the door and it went wham and slammed back shut. And so we started,
Come out with your hands up.
loudly demanding that the chair surrender itself until we figured out what it was.
The door closed after we pushed it open. Right. We thought it was him pushing on the door.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it definitely made me realize how difficult of a job, like you said, even Ian, that is going through a closed, tight space and trying to, be on the. Yeah, you're basically just at the disadvantage off rip. You're off from the beginning. You're trying to fight a force that's got the drop on you essentially at all points. And like when we made our way past that room to the stairs is when it even got more sketchy, more like, oh my god, like I could never ever do this.
Our first run through, we were told straight up this is a one-story building.
Yeah.
So there's a staircase, but nothing's upstairs, don't worry about it. And it was hard enough on one story as it was. The one thing I was proud of is we got mission focused on shooting him. And we actually ended up talking him out and didn't fire around on that first run through.
Yep.
Yeah.
We had the salmiakki for him.
Yes. Yeah, we got in and we knew he was in this room behind that door. And I'm like, let's try negotiating one last time.
Yeah.
And it seemed a little goofy, but it's a role play. So I'm like, hey, we have salty licorice out here for you. All you have to do is come out without a gun.
Yeah. Yeah. That was wild. Yeah.
And it was looking at that from if I'm pretending that that's a realistic situation, you would always want to try and negotiate someone out because otherwise there's 4 of us, and if we bust through that door, take 4 dice, roll them, see how many of your guys get killed.
Yeah.
That's why even.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll win. You'll totally win unless it's freaking Rambo in there. But at what cost? And if that's your day job, how many days do you roll those dice before they just come up with snake eyes?
Yeah.
And you're done.
Yeah. Very true.
That's one real life case. There are many others probably, but one that I remember was in the U.S. where there was some mass shooter, and they got him barricaded in one of the libraries or whatever. Was that in Texas?
Is this the Texas parking garage? I think it was.
The guy with the SKS.
I don't remember what
There was a guy with a 5.45 Ziga.
Really?
Maybe.
Well, what's the rest
Wait,
of the?
yeah, what's the rest of the
Well, he got barricaded somewhere, and they send in a police robot with a C4
That was the
or
yeah,
C2.
that was in Dallas,
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah.
It
on
just
the-
blew him out.
Yeah.
Like, and people were like, "Fuck." The reality is like that's one way, or just close him in and wait him out until he dies of starvation, because it's like nobody wants to go in when someone is half capable with a rifle and waiting for you.
And
you
in a
can't win
military
it.
context, you just destroy the building.
Oh yeah,
You don't
but that was
risk going
police.
in there. But this is police, which is
Yeah.
like that center zone. That's the hardest thing to try and negotiate.
Yeah, he'd already
Yeah.
killed 5 officers at that
Yeah,
point.
he was out
Yeah.
shooting Texas cops. So as I recall, he demanded food, and they sent in a Subway sandwich bag full of
C4. Oh, there you go. Yeah, well, that sounds like about the right consequence
It's
for
like-
killing 5 people. Yeah, well, the interesting thing is
It should be a happy meal.
Extra
very,
spicy, please.
very happy meal. Well, the thing that just that made me realize God, I mean, I can't even imagine like in Iraq when they're trying to like clear the city of Fallujah. Like,
Oh,
dude,
oh.
what
Insane.
the
yeah.
dude? I can't even imagine how brutal that was.
But then, can you also imagine, how many innocent people died? Because when you're in that state, someone is there, probably a terrorist. You burst in, like it really takes a lot of mind processing that you not shoot at everything that fucking moves.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally, and that's also you realize how people get PTSD just from that. Always needing to be in that zone where you have to make that decision in a split second.
It also really highlights the amount of confidence and trust and practice with your teammates that it requires, because you're going to be half or a third of an effective like an operation. It requires that you go there and I go here and you go there, and we're all mutually covering each other. And if one person doesn't, we're screwed potentially. Or if you get the timing wrong, you show up exposed, or like
That happened when you were downstairs, Yari was upstairs, and you were discussing something too long. He was like, went to the stairs and shot, I think,
Calvin.
you in the head.
He shot Mike in the finger, so
Yeah.
Mike went back, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna avenge Mike. And then bam, right there.
Shot.
Damn.
yeah.
Yeah. That was just a total like mind shift learning experience where the door is that kill zone, right? And then you start to think about all these situations like, I mean, some of the tragedies we've had in the U.S. with school shootings, particularly I think about Uvalde. I mean, they should have gone in and just... I know, I'm sorry to bring that up, but it's just
No,
like,
no,
when you
no,
think about it, the kids in the shooter's in the room with all the kids, he's aiming at the doorway, basically, and you have to go through the doorway. There's no other way, because there might be kids in there that are
If
alive.
you're a police officer, but okay, that's maybe too big of a job for a normal police officer. But if you're a SWAT member, that's the part of your job. It's like being the guys that protect the president or
Secret Service.
Secret Service. But yeah, like
Jumping in
a
front of the
personal
bullet.
bodyguard.
Yeah.
Like a part of your job is that if something like that happens, you are the one that like use your body to protect someone else.
Yeah, you go in
Like,
there regardless.
If you don't have that set up mentally, you're not the right guy
Yeah,
for the job. And I think that was a big fail.
Yeah.
That was a big fail.
Well-
So much people died just because of that.
Yeah, and the guy that took the shooter out did it single-handedly. I think he just went. He went in, and because he was like border patrol or something, former SWAT guy or something from border patrol that happened to like respond. He heard about it and drove up and just said, "Fuck, I'm going into school," and he just took the shooter out.
Yeah, there were like a lot of issues. I think even some police guys had kids inside. They
Yeah.
wanted to go in, but they prevented them.
That was just
That
a
was a
failure.
giant cluster.
Yeah,
big fail.
big failure. Yeah, sad.
I would say like most of your major departments, their policy is if there is a school shooting, anyone who's there,
Should go
they're
in.
going in.
Yeah.
It certainly
It's-
is.
That's
Like-
the SOP everywhere now, even in
Yeah.
Europe. Like they teach now, like if there's an active shooter event, whoever is there, go in.
Yep.
You have in even in our squad cars, you have ballistic vests in the back, and I think they have 2 rifles. So like you have no excuse. It's your job. You're there. Go in. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see, it's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, whole new perspective on it for sure. That really helped with my, because when it's like you said, like when we went in initially, it was like, oh yeah, it's easy off it, hit the steel and all that, and just like shooting targets at the range, oh, hit the steel. And when you've got someone shooting back, there's a
Real
whole different, big difference.
Yeah.
So
You ended up taking out Yari in the second
I
round.
kind of had a nice little.
He surrendered and then
He went for his
thought
gun.
that he had a moment and went for a gun. And
I had that on video. That was
Blasted him.
brutal. That was very nice.
I think I popped it 2 or 3 times.
And you popped him like this.
Yeah, it was like
execution style. But okay, let's move on just from the, because we have a whole video coming up on this Force on Force, so people can see it. But the question about all of this that we discussed. So, in your opinion, what would be better for someone that's interested in this? Should he first learn to shoot good and get good technique, or first learn the tactics?
Well, I think when it comes, I'm going to say you should learn to shoot first, because the tactics are something that I feel like you could probably pick up on. I mean, obviously you need to practice them, but maybe they're a little bit easier to apply the tactics than the repetition of shooting, because you have to have that instinct, like you were saying, just not thinking about it. Being able to have that muscle memory is super important, and ultimately, like, you know, the tactics will get you killed, and also the lack of shooting will get you killed too, if you're not proficient at it. So I guess it's a balance.
I think the shooting that you're doing in a CQB sort of environment is something that even brutality type matches don't generally teach. It's targets that are so big and so close that really point shooting is a valid and optimal response most of the time. To me, you could very much do both of these things simultaneously. If you're doing CQB with airsoft guns, yeah, you need to be familiar with, you need to be able to operate the airsoft gun without having to look at it and think about like which end of the pellets come out of. But you can do that, and you can be shooting, and the two skills really don't have that much overlap.
I mean, if you look at how close we were and still had misses,
Right.
I think being very familiar with the firearm would be extremely beneficial.
I agree with Kelvin, because especially now, like I would, even before what we did yesterday, I would still be of this opinion, but after I saw Kelvin yesterday, I'm completely convinced that this is the way, because it was half an hour of me just giving you a couple of pointers. You went once through the house, like you are no experts at all, but just with the pointers, you understood, like you didn't have to worry about the reloads, about how the gun works, how do I aim and shoot and hit someone. Did anyone think about like aligning the sights and pressing the trigger?
No, I mean,
it's natural for
half
you.
the
You
time
know
we
it.
never even fired a
Right,
shot.
and you can do that under stress, under adrenaline. You only thought about the things that I told you. So fatal tunnels, angles, slicing the pie, and using your head, thinking about it, And if you don't have to think about how to operate the gun, you have more mental capacity. Just what the situation here? How can I flank? Will this, if he's hiding there, will he see me here if I peek and so on, And I feel like that's the proper way, because the other way around, you can move like super smooth. You can have all the
CQB footwork.
CQB footwork. You can be very fast in peeking. All the angles, whatever. Knowledge transfer. Yeah, you can know all of this, and then when it comes to shooting and you miss, or you have to reload and just like fucks you up, you cannot miss fast enough. That's another saying.
Yeah. So if you look, maybe a lot of us are probably maybe like we don't really spend a whole lot of time with new shooters, but I have recently, because we've had more matches that have had new shooters show up, and you see how long it takes for them just to shoulder a rifle, because they're not familiar with it. So that the half second, 3/4 of a second for them to pick up the rifle and figure out where to put it in the shoulder and then lift it up and see the sights, that's the difference from getting clapped by Op 4 or not.
That's true.
But honestly, like just one thing that I want to mention here, you know, like rifle classes, where they're like super anal about how to shoulder the rifle and stuff, like that's super unimportant for me. Like I can have a super long stock, collapse stock, or no stock at all. Like I will hit. It will not be ideal, but I can work with this position here. Like when we shot, I think in finished brutality,
Super long, collapsed, or broken off.
yes. I still finished the stage without powering out.
That's true.
I did this and hit it, right?
Because you have the experience to know your limits and what you can and cannot do.
Yeah, but my cheek weld is unimportant. Yeah. My like I have a red dot. I don't have to align the sights. What I have to do, I have to keep it on target, and when I press the trigger, I'm not allowed to move it off the target. That's it. That makes a hit. Yeah, it's easier if you have a good stock and proper distance or whatever, you know, but it's not that important.
Right, but someone who's new, who's been taught the proper way to shoot, they think that's all they can do. Mm-hmm. And they don't know how far they can deviate off of that and still be able to hit the target that's in front of them. Because it's a spectrum, right? Like the more difficult the target is, the better your foundation has to be in order to be successful. But when it gets closer and speed is the priority now, if someone hasn't learned that they can shoot with a little bit of offset stock and crooked and with not a full grip or something, they're not going to do that. So there's going to be that delay. Mm-hmm. So that just will come from experience.
Cool. I think we discussed all of the questions that I had. So Do we have any more?
Questions from Patreon?
Yeah, we can do that, yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
So I had a question from Patreon about IPSC versus tactical shooting, but we pretty much just spent about an hour talking about that exactly. So
yeah.
I guess
consider that one covered.
I guess he will increase the amount of money then now.
All right. Of course, my questions from my patrons are all for Ian.
Thanks.
This is from Bear. He says, "Ask Gun Jesus what his most difficult to find out gun fact was." So, a particular fact about a gun that you had a hard time finding or researching. Okay, that's one element of the question. The next is, if you had to, or if you could, design a conceptual gun. I know you've already sort of did this, but it's kind of more of an alteration, I guess. But design a conceptual gun that you would like to own. What would that gun consist of?
Oh.
It's kind of an interesting question.
A little bit, yeah, because normally when I hear a question like that, my immediate answer is, well, it's usually what's the best gun? And the answer is there is no best gun. It's what are you trying to do with it?
True.
I kind of went through this a little bit with, of all things, a hunting rifle. Because I had a really fairly detailed, specific list of things I wanted in a hunting rifle. And the first one came about from the first time I got to go hunting was with a bunch of Europeans in Europe, and they all had suppressors. And this was a while back, and I didn't have a suppressor. I didn't really have much experience with them. And I realized it was such a better experience to hunt without needing ear protection. Because I'm not willing to... I don't want to take one shot, unsuppressed, supersonic, without ear pro. I think there are a lot of people, especially like older hunters, for whom you don't even hear the round because you don't notice it because you're excited, you've seen an animal, and very similar to our CQB stuff, but that still damages your hearing. So I wanted a suppressed rifle, and then ideally I wanted a suppressed subsonic rifle. So it was legitimately totally hearing safe. It needed to be a cartridge that was substantial enough to take an elk. And then I wanted a lightweight gun. I wanted a bipod on it. I had sort of this fantasy list of stuff. And the initial best solution I came up with was a Steyr Scout, which fulfilled a lot, but not everything. It was a supersonic round, but it was suppressed. It has a bipod, but it's not a very good bipod. It's a very limited bipod on a Steyr Scout. Definitely light and handy, although tacking the suppressor on took some of that out. Doesn't have a folding stock. Excuse me. And I ended up absolutely falling in love with the Q fix because I didn't have to design it. Oftentimes, I'm not thinking about how would I.
Is it the 8.6?
Yeah,
Yeah,
8.6
that's what I
blackout.
thought.
So it's essentially 308 necked up to 338 with a 340, 350 grain subsonic expanding bullet. Short barrel, it's a 12-inch barrel. You can put a can on it. It's got a folding stock. The whole thing's still only about this long. Legitimately, completely hearing safe. It's ludicrously quiet.
Yeah.
I don't normally think about how would I build this gun because it's just not a practical thing that I can do.
Yeah.
I think honestly what happened is Brittingham at Q had about the same sort of list of desires for a hunting rifle that I did by coincidence. And he did have the money and the factory and the opportunity to say, okay, how do I build this perfect rifle? In fact, I'm sure of that because I asked him what the next thing he was going to do was, and he gave me an answer. And I'm like, there got to be 4 people in the world who are going to buy one of those? And he goes, well, yeah, but it's cool and I want one, so I'm going to build it. So
Nice.
I think that's about the closest good answer I can give to that.
The thing is that you could do 308 subsonic, but that has way less energy.
Right.
That's the point of 8.6 because you can have it like subsonic, but it still delivers a punch.
So it has a punch because of the bullet weight, but the other thing that's kind of unique about it is this extremely fast twist rate. It's a 1 in 3 twist.
Oh.
wow.
You look down the bore of this thing and it looks like it's not rifled, it's threaded.
Whoa.
It's nuts.
Wow.
And what happens is you can go out to, normally with a subsonic round, you're going to lose velocity pretty quickly, and your expanding bullets are dependent on velocity to expand.
Yeah.
And so you have a really limited range before you've just got a slow heavy bullet, and you might as well have shot an animal with a 45 ACP or something.
Yeah.
With the rotational velocity that you get from that twist rate, that doesn't decrease as quickly as linear velocity does. So that bullet's still spinning extremely fast at 300 or 400 yards, even though it's slowed down a couple hundred feet per second. And as long as if you design the bullet such that it uses the rotational energy to expand the bullet, what you get are the 340, 350 grain bullets we see from companies like Gorilla and Discrete Ammo, where they open up to literally an inch in diameter or more.
Wow.
With petals that reliably open, and that will be terminally effective way farther out than most people would expect from a subsonic round.
That's one thing that at first, when I first heard it, I thought it was bullshit. It's so new and so out of ordinary, but I was immediately interested about it, and yeah, it now it makes sense, but in the gun world, a lot of these kind of claims are bullshit.
Yeah.
But this one is completely legit because you transfer energy into rotational energy. It's still energy,
Yeah.
So, and realistically, terminal ballistics are all about the transfer of energy. You can have a lot of energy in a bullet. If it will be very stable and just go through and through, yes, it will transfer a lot of energy where it touches. But if it goes through and through, a lot of energy is lost. If you transfer that energy to the body or to whatever you're shooting at, that creates damage. And it's a different kind of thinking about it, but it fucking works, because rotational energy it's like a gyro. It retains it,
Yeah. And it's one thing to try and use that rotational energy directly. I think the more substantial impact is utilizing that rotational energy to expand the bullet.
Yeah.
So you have a ton
Because
of surface
that's
area
the-
to break stuff.
That's the transfer.
Yeah.
Because if you imagine slow bullet just twisting very fast, but just goes through the animal, less damage. That's why a lot of people do not understand this still. Slow heavy bullets are not as effective as fast light bullets.
Yeah.
The thing is that first it's mass times velocity squared. That's the energy, and because it's velocity squared, that means that if you increase velocity, it's exponential. Yeah. Much better than if you increase mass.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that, for example, if we take handgun bullets, they're big and they're heavy, but they're slow, and when they go through the body, they only destroy the things that they touch directly and tear and break up. With rifles, they have such big velocity, then when they when they touch stuff, they actually transfer energy, and like that's why we see the cavitation.
Yeah.
You know, the temporary cavity. Yeah. And all of that expanding tissue usually is destroyed because of the force. Like your blood vessels rupture, everything. Yeah, everything goes. That's why you often get like a KO from a rifle hit. If it's like in this kind of body area, people just drop down, and it's not because of like they die instantly. It's KO. It's just like it's someone like punch you really hard. It's overwhelming your nervous system. You go down, and then some people get up. Some people just die because of bleeding.
It's a really hard subject, I think, to quantify carefully, because the body is really not a homogeneous substance.
Yeah.
True.
And you have huge changes in impact depending on what gets hit.
Yeah.
And there's so much randomness involved in that.
Also, it's not randomness, but there's so many factors.
Yeah.
For example, that's one thing that also sounds a bit of like fairy tales, but I think it's true. It was confirmed by some kind of ballistic analysis. Shooting terrorists in Afghanistan, where they were like they had low body mass, they were very thin, and they are compared to Europeans and the Americans, they're also a bit dehydrated. Like they're skinny guys. And 5.56, especially, I don't know, it was the old green tip or whatever. It was so stable, it went through and through. Like in a European, didn't tumble, like the guy would still die. Yeah. But like there was a case where the guy was shot like 3 times or 4 times zipped, and he was still able to fire an RPG like towards people.
Wow.
He will die anyway, but like if I would get shot by that, you know, like my bigger body, like the bullet would tumble.
Yeah.
Transfer the energy, and I would probably get KO'd, go down, and then later die.
Yeah.
So that I think that was the biggest push to change the bullet.
From
what is it? The bullet
from M855 to.
But also to develop a different bullet geometry.
Oh yeah.
For the 5.56.
There's another question, but for all of you guys, if you want, this is the last one I have. Simple, but it's from Pop Chromatic on my Patreon. What are you guys' thoughts on 3D printed guns?
I was very skeptical to begin with, and I remain half skeptical. I think there were a lot of the people who were making 3D printed guns and some who still are, have little fundamental understanding of guns. They're 3D printing enthusiasts who are looking at this as an exciting new venue for their hobby. And there are some things, and they don't recognize necessarily some of the material limitations. Like making a 3D printed barrel is vaguely possible for something like a 22 rimfire. You're not doing it out of a 308.
No.
Until we get really significant material improvements. Yeah. But I've been actually quite impressed by the advances in what has been made possible. And I think a lot of it, and I haven't dug into the subject deeply, although I would like to at some point, I think a lot of it has come from a hybrid of 3D printed and non-3D printed parts. Yeah. You know, when I look at the original Liberator, it's all 3D printed, which means the barrel and all the springs are these janky, you know, S-curve plastic springs that they mostly work. And I recognize the huge possibilities of additive manufacturing. Yes. And when you do it with metal, holy crap, like, I mean, I want to say I did see some of this coming. Complex internal geometries that are impossible to manufacture with conventional methods. We are seeing in suppressors rapid expansion in monolithic 3D printed suppressors and made out of exotic cool alloys that are light and heat resistant, and that's extremely exciting to me. Yeah. And we're seeing 3D printing of prototyping for firearms, where instead of having to tool up hand machines and make this whole new part each time you want to iterate a design, you change it in SolidWorks, boop, 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 squirt one out of the metal printer, and you can have design iteration turnover in days or weeks instead of months. Yeah. That's extremely exciting. Yeah. But there remains a focus on, like, I want to do it in my garage. And there's still going to be major limitations on that. But again, it's been really impressive to see some of those limitations really overcome.
Yeah, well, I'm curious because you shot a homemade AK at this match, right? An AK that you
Yeah,
that you
I
basically
built it myself,
built
but
it
it was
you-
with
well-
a hydraulic press and a bunch of sheet metal and some rivets.
Yes, so that is a DIY gun, just like a 3D printed AK is a DIY gun, in the same kind of. Well, I don't know if you used a serialized receiver or not.
The important distinction is, well, I used 80% flats.
Okay.
I did some building with flats and some with receivers, but literally every other component was manufactured by the Kujir factory complex that is 5 kilometers long and employed thousands of people making guns.
Yes.
I didn't make the barrel, I didn't make the bolt, I didn't have to heat treat any of those parts. The furniture, it was complicated Legos. It wasn't making a gun in my mind.
Yeah, well, just
Can
to
I
add
reply
on.
to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So first, just to clear things up, 3D printing guns or making guns yourself in Slovenia and most of Europe is not legal. You need a certified gunsmith and some other.
I assume that
Stuff.
that tracks parallel with making metal guns. In the US, if you can legally own it, you can legally make it. So if I wanted to make myself a pistol on a mill, I can just do that. And the 3D printing is legal because it's fundamentally the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
I'm assuming in Slovenia, you couldn't just go make a rifle without the proper
Exactly.
licensing and permit.
Yeah,
It has
exactly.
nothing to do with the 3D printing. It has more to do with the DIY making your own gun thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like 3D printing is super cool. Not just printing guns, but like 3 of our products that we sell in our store that we developed, like we couldn't make it without 3D printers because, like you said, it's so crucial for testing and research and development. Like without it would be cost prohibitive because every prototype that we kind of designed, we would have to pay a lot of money to get it milled and then try it out and then scrap and then get a new one. But with 3D printer, you can just do a lot of stuff. 3D printed guns. At first, I knew about the Liberator and some other stuff like way in the beginning. I thought it was like kind of bullshit. It was just more as a statement or something. Until I shot the FGC9, and like my opinion changed. You can make that at home almost anywhere in the world. Yeah, it's not completely 3D printed, but
It's completely
I think-
DIY though.
yeah, I can maybe I'll explain a couple parts of the process. For example, barrel, right? We have China. China makes excellent, really high quality steel tubes that are just the right dimensions, right? You can buy them by meters. They are super cheap and they are legal almost everywhere in the world. You get delivered that at home, and now you don't have the machine to do the rifling, right? So what you do, you 3D print a device, like a proper insert, plastical one, and then you use some cheap copper wire, you apply it there, you put it inside the barrel in salt water, apply electricity, and in 3 days you have perfect rifling that works
This
on a
is-
barrel that's like pressure bearing.
So this is, by the way, this is EDM. This is electrical
EDM,
discharge
exactly,
machining.
but you can do it at home.
Right.
ECM, yeah.
It's like no cost at all. Like, and it works. It's functional. It's safe, and it's illegal in Europe. But like, what I also like about this is like the kind of the statement and the mindset. Like, almost anyone anywhere can build a gun, and I kind of envy you guys because you have that right. You have the right to own guns, and protect yourself. That in Europe is not possible. But still, like if something happens, like people at home can make stuff, and that's a reality because even way before 3D printers, how much guns Croatians and Serbians made.
Yeah.
At home.
I have a whole
with lathes
series
and stuff.
of
Right.
shed-made Croatian submachine guns.
Yeah, because when shit hits the fan, you need something to protect yourself. That's the reality.
Yeah. And I mean, you're seeing it in Burma right now, where they're using FGC9s against the Tatmadaw, the military dictatorship there. And even if they're just for training or actually being used, which sometimes they are being actually used in drive-bys and stuff against military outposts, like it's absolutely being implemented, and I find that fascinating. And yeah, I guess my other question for you, Ian, was kind of just like, what are your thoughts on just like DIY guns in the space of just in being available to make like yourself, the ease of it is, I guess, where the 3D printing comes in. Whether or not it's never going to, well, not never, but who knows? But it's like not going to be as strong or as durable as a regular gun, clearly. But like in the example of the Plastikov, the most recent version of the Plastikov, I didn't need any rivet tools, any presses or anything. Ultimately, yeah, you got to get a headspace kit, so it has to be pre-pressed. But as far as assembling the receiver itself, you just have a few bolts and plastic. So kind of what are your thoughts on that? And obviously, Calvin, you can chip in too if you want.
I think it's a neat hobby.
Yeah.
I guess fundamentally, probably the reason I haven't paid more attention to it is that I generally focus on military firearms and historical firearms. And these, to me, actually, it's kind of funny to me how I remember seeing the Liberator when it first came out. And today, the Liberator's 10 years old?
Yeah,
something like
about
that.
Just
and it's
10
like,
years.
now I look at it, I'm like, oh, the Liberator's like the vintage Gen 1 of this. And I kind of want to go find one in a collection somewhere to film it, because all of a sudden it's the great grandpa of the stuff that's available now. And so it's kind of like filtering into my world of consciousness slowly.
Yeah. Will you ever do a video on the FGC9?
Almost certainly at some point.
Okay, cool. Yeah. There's a good question people want to know. What about you, Calvin? What do you think?
So, as like my priorities are being a shooter first.
Yeah.
So, in my mind, or what little I know about 3D printed guns, is they tend to not last as long as your normal guns. So they're not really on the radar.
Yeah.
What I like about the whole idea is that if we're ever in a situation where we no longer have access to our guns or they become extremely limited, we have options now.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
And as the technology gets better, we can make better guns out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe they'll be more viable for daily use, or for like competition shooting, or for for anything really. It's like just have like if I could just 3D print my EDC.
Yeah.
One day, because like I lost mine or had to lend somebody my gun, that'd be pretty sick to just be like, oh, I'm gonna print out another gun.
Yeah. Have you ever shot a 3D printed gun?
I have not.
Oh, well, we're gonna have to get you to that's got to change.
And I know I read about like 3D printed ammo cases, like casings. Is that like a thing, or?
So there's actually a project that I was actually made aware of at this SHOT Show. This guy who was a fan of mine or had watched my videos had. His brother was at one of the SHOT Show parties and was like, oh, PSR, my brother loves you, whatever. And I talked to him and he's like, yeah, I've been developing some ammo. And so he sent me a video of 3D print PLA with, it had some amount of powder in it, obviously, projectile, and he shot it like a watermelon, and it didn't cycle the handgun. It was a handgun. It was 9mm. It was 45, and it didn't cycle the slide, obviously, because the projectile's tiny and it weighs nothing. It's made out of plastic, but it did put a significant hole in the watermelon, which made me wonder. I want to get some like ballistic gel out and see actually how it performed, because I mean that's pretty cool. Whether or not it's it's just a single shot, obviously.
The whole casing or just the bullet?
The whole so there was a metal primer in there somewhere. I actually have some at home that I have to do a video on. So I'll explain it more, but I actually don't.
Ziga's thinking about how many years in prison he would spend for this.
Actually, no. Like we have very lax laws about that. Even like if you have a fully automatic gun, if it's accidentally fully automatic, it's just like a fine. You get like a paper fine that you pay.
So
or if I have a loaded gun on myself right now as a sport shooter, so I should not have that. It's a fine. So
it's just a fine. See that? So that it's
for you guys, it's 10 years to 100,000 minimum.
If they were to, if the ATF was
and they shoot your dog.
Yeah, if the ATF was to raid me and I had a Yankee Boogle drop-in auto sear printed one or a printed Glock switch, it would be 10 years for each offense or something. A maximum 10 years. And a $100,000 fine, I think it is.
I have a lot of plastic coat hangers at home.
Yeah.
I'm a lot less worried about the fine, I think, than the 10 years in prison.
Yeah. Fine, you could pay off eventually, but
Eventually.
but the
100,000 for us,
How many
I would
license
rather
plates
be
do I
in
have to-
prison than
Wow.
have to pay that.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, but that's interesting that it's a little bit less of a, well, way less of a consequence for something like a drop-in auto-sear or something that you accidentally had in your gun.
Oh no, the thing is that dropping.
I tripped and it just fell.
Yeah, but the thing is that dropping auto sears, fully automatic trigger groups, that's legal here, as long as you do not have it in your gun.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all
Well,
for it.
Your law should be like that because like, okay, you have
Go tell our
you have the
government.
intent, right? You have the intent or something like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
But it
constructive
can be
intent.
yeah, but it can be so, I don't know, like
Well, for me, is if I have a PS90 and I have a 10-inch barrel for that PS90, if I'm not mistaken, and I have a like a receiver that's not put together. Well, I don't know. Well, if I have a receiver for a PS90 and a barrel for a PS90 that's under 16 inches, that's constructive intent, even if I haven't put it together. Is that right? I think that's right.
It depends a bit on the prosecutor, but it certainly can be.
Yeah.
I heard about cases where people had some chemicals at home and like it was like intent to make drugs, methamphetamine, because 3 of the chemicals were kind of the same or whatever.
Yeah. Well, with guns, it's like, with guns.
It's like, oh, I have some fertilizer at home and I have diesel in my car. Oh, you wanted to make a bomb, did you?
yeah.
Prison.
Well, I think Ian's right about depends on the
I mean,
prosecutor, depends on the
The
situation.
thing is, these sorts of laws start with they find a guy who has, a tractor trailer load of NyQuil, and this detailed recipe for how to turn it into meth, and a list of like, I would like to buy meth, please contact me, and this and this and this, but he hasn't actually made any, and they're like, well, we obviously know what he was doing, and in that kind of case, it is. It's like obviously this is what was going on, and then they write the law, or interpret the law to allow it, and then it just gradually slides into
that's
you
another
bought
thing.
2 packets of NyQuil, jail.
Yeah.
That's another thing. So ATF can just like interpret the law as they wish. essentially.
Basically.
Yes, but
yeah.
also no, and
Yes, and also no.
it's all
And
quite
all of the
complicated.
above.
Yeah.
I like my dog, so I'm just not gonna say anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not willing to be a desk case, don't poke
Yeah.
the bear.
And by desk case, you mean like the case that decides whether or not a law becomes or ratified or whatever.
Yeah, one of the other things we have is this the idea that you can't challenge a law unless you've actually suffered specific damages from it. So if they pass a law and I'm like, oh, that law is unconstitutional, I'm gonna sue them because the law is unconstitutional. Well, that immediately gets thrown out because I have no standing to sue because I haven't been damaged. If I want to sue for like, you should let me register a new machine gun, what I have to do is make a new machine gun, register it, get arrested for breaking the law, and then I can challenge the law.
Yeah.
But if or when I inevitably lose, because the ATF has a whole lot more lawyers than I do, like I have to risk taking the penalty if I'm not successful in order to challenge it. And that's why we don't have a whole lot of challenges.
That's the bump stock situation, right?
That's the law in general. But guns
like,
and everything.
But like more recent case.
The nice thing about the bump stocks is there was like companies who had them and had to throw them out have a demonstrative, like they have suffered demonstrably
damages,
because they had inventory that had monetary value and now they don't, and they can sue on that basis.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, yeah, that 3D printing question divulged into a lot of ATF stuff. Shocking.
Oh yeah, I had one question. So it's a question for Hoffman. I mean, I should repeat. Why are you wearing the balaclava and why are you trying to
Hide my face.
hide your identity? Yeah.
Well, it started out as I had another project that was on the internet, and I wanted to separate the other project that had my face on it from the 3D printing gun project, because I just started it and
Are you doing porn?
we'll leave that up to, that's a mystery. Maybe if you want to find out, then dig deeper. But
Do you have an OnlyFans?
I don't, but actually there's been a ton of people requesting it, and I would consider the mask with the OnlyFans, because it's like, okay, I got the mask on, But who knows? Yeah, if you guys would subscribe to the OnlyFans, leave a comment.
I would.
Okay. All right. I got one so far then. But yeah, I just wanted to separate the two entities because I felt like, oh, this, that was all it was at the beginning, but then it kind of turned into its own kind of little character. Like I'm me right now. There's no difference between me without the mask and just having this conversation. But when I'm on the camera and this PSR doing this silly stuff, it's kind of like its own little character, you know? Yeah.
Have you thought about revealing your identity, like admin?
I have thought about it. And then each time I've thought about it, I've thought, yeah, it would be nice to not have to wear a mask every time I turn on the camera for PSR. But at the same time, I think I've kind of built it's its own thing and it's its own kind of little like brand, so to speak. And I think that I enjoy being able to put the mask on when I want to get like noticed at like a little shooting something, like at a competition or just at SHOT Show or something. And then I can just completely be under the radar when I don't have it on. Although sometimes people notice me when I don't have it on, but.
Has anyone else tried putting on a mask and then pretended to be you?
There's been people that have put on balaclavas like that are in the 3D printing space because it's kind of like a thing that people do. The OPSEC people are very all about the OPSEC and the 3D.
With a good reason, probably.
Yeah, with a good reason. I mean, especially if you're in Europe doing it. But in the U.S., for whatever reason, I have complete. Like, I don't have any judgment, obviously, because I'm doing it, but against people that want to keep their identity hidden on the internet. There's so many reasons you'd want to do that, obviously. But because I'm not doing anything illegal, whether or not I've gone into the gray area with things like the super safety at times, that's one thing. But I do follow the law when it comes to the firearm stuff, because there's obviously, like we were saying, very steep consequences for not, especially posting it on the internet. That is it's.
I mean, if you're dumb, that's a grade A way to really have negative consequences for your life.
Yes.
Is to do something blatantly illegal and post it on the internet.
Yes.
Yeah, some people get away from it, and
yes,
some people don't.
Yes, that is a great point. Yeah. So, posting your felonies, probably not a great idea.
Wasn't there like a anti-gun activist, like some lady that cut the barrel off of the AR, made it an SBR?
Yes.
And she should go to prison, because like the law should be the same for everyone. If you did it, they would take all of your guns, like you would be in prison.
Yeah.
And I think that should apply to her too.
What a radical concept.
Yeah. Well, there was a one recently too where it usually happens with these gun grabber buyback events where they'll take guns and then they'll destroy them. And I remember there was one recently where I don't know if it was somewhere in the South, where they took a bunch of guns. I think it was in Southwest maybe. They took a bunch of guns and they had them at a buyback. They took the guns and they were making them into an art project. Do you remember this?
Vaguely.
And they were cutting them, but they weren't destroying the receivers properly per the ATF rules, which ATF has very specific, I think, rules about destroying, demilling, or milling the receivers out so that they're inoperable, right?
Yeah.
And then we get the firearms kits from Europe and stuff that are demilled, like AK kits, Uzi kits that are all cut to per ATF specifications. And they were destroying them, but they weren't technically destroying them enough, so to speak. I mean, I'm against destroying any gun for that purpose, but I mean, I guess if you're gonna make it into an art project, whatever. But this was like a very anti-gun message behind it, but then they didn't follow the rules of actually destroying the guns, which was interesting. Yeah.
Shoot their dog, put them in prison.
Yeah.
They should not have their dog shot. No dog shot.
Okay, that's true. Yeah. Leave the dogs alone.
Yeah.
What was it? What? Okay, so why? How did this meme come up?
Well, cops like to shoot. Well, cops consider dogs threats, obviously. So cops are pretty. Okay, this is a generalized statement, but I would. All right. Okay.
Good thing you have
Disclaimer. No. I mean, I just think that. I mean, if you see a dog and it's running at you, and you're a cop and it's barking at you, your decision in that moment. I mean, like we were doing with the shoot house, like you don't know if it's a threat or not. And there's a lot of officers that I've seen. Obviously, there's plenty of officers that don't do this, but that tend to just go for the dog to end the threat and kill the dog.
There have been a couple notable instances where a dog was shot that was like on a chain staked to the ground.
Yes.
And like your options to survive were either kill the dog or step back 5 feet.
Yes. Yes.
And man, it's a sticky meme. It's something that infuriates everybody.
Yeah, but it comes from like real world,
Yes,
because
yes.
they actually shoot a lot of dogs. and
Yes.
you have YouTube videos of that.
Yes.
It's-
Well, the rules of engagement on an animal are a lot different than those on a person.
Yeah.
the
Sadly.
rules of engagement.
Well, the thing is, I've
Fuck.
seen dogs come up with their tail wagging to cops, and the cop just fucking executes them. And to me, that's super infuriating, obviously. And anytime you see that, that's the thing with the cop videos too. It's really tough because we see those things. We see the times when they shoot them. We don't see the times when they don't shoot.
Right. There are how many million cops in the U.S.?
Yeah. And it's just like people. You know,
It-
you got
yeah.
a lot of really great people, and you got some bad people too. And it's the same with cops.
I'm just thinking right now, if like cops show up at my place and they shoot my dog,
Well, you don't have your dog is like this
Um,
little tiny free sample of a dog, and they'd have to be really good shots to hit her.
yeah, but I just like
Regardless, yeah, you'd feel pretty upset, right?
no, I think
a lot of
we would
people-
have more problems than just upset.
Yeah, I think you would probably shoot back.
Let's leave this topic, but yeah, you know, you have some limits in your life, you know, like
Yeah.
some stuff that when someone crosses it, you know,
Dude.
doesn't matter.
No, I mean,
yeah.
this is a philosophical thing too. Yeah,
Very philosophical.
I mean, I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. That would infuriate me to the point where, I mean, a dog is like a companion.
Hey, you look at how the police treat their own dogs.
Yeah.
Essentially, that a police dog is an officer,
Yeah.
and in many ways, from a legal perspective,
Oh, yeah.
a police dog
Yes.
is a police officer.
Yes.
And so it should be no surprise. I mean, they're dogs. We like them better than other people.
Yes. Yes.
I feel like this is maybe like when the tool of your police is the gun, like that's their main tool, I guess. It's like the saying. I love the saying.
If the only tool you have is a gun, every target looks like a dog.
Pretty much, yes. Yes.
Oh God.
That should be a T-shirt, like ATF, and then like a slogan in the back. Oh fuck.
Fuck.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Oh,
I have
Kelvin, yes.
one good one for everybody. What does your training look like on a weekly basis?
What?
What does your training look like on a weekly basis? and it's not limited to just gun stuff. It could be everything you do to.
For me, it's zero training.
No, but working out. No,
No,
you don't work out.
You don't work out?
my
This
working.
way is all fat now.
Yeah, it is a lot of fat. Like my working out is like lifting the baby. When I have to get it from the car, like just do this. I'm not kidding.
Well,
I don't have time with our business and everything, and I shoot quite well. I do
Professional
not
gun
train. I
tuber.
do not have
to
time to
shoot.
train. Like the last shooting competition, I went to Steel Challenge with the PCC. I haven't shot that gun for 2 years maybe.
Wow.
Put an optic on it in the morning before competition and did my makeshift zero where I looked through the barrel and then adjusted the optic to where it was pointing. It was second place. Like I have certain skills with guns and I kind of retain it, but mostly I shoot because of the videos that we have to do.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that we can do competitions, but I don't really have time to properly train. It's just too much of everything. Now I'm also lacking with physical training because I don't sleep a lot because of the baby. And then we had the Brutality organization.
Yeah. But let's say before you had the baby.
1 year I decided to do to train and shoot more IPSC, and I did just extra dry fire and
Nice.
VR. VR, what is
Oh, nice.
practice sim or something like that.
Nice.
The people don't understand that it's not about the recoil whatever. Like it's more about like for me it was registering the targets, getting the movement, transitions and stuff, and it really improved my shooting just by playing a game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So I go to the range typically once a week with
To train or to film?
to film. Well, I go to the range,
Yeah,
period,
yeah.
and it happens to be, it's entirely to film, and it's with every week some bizarre montage of guns, because I'll be filming like a short shooting segment for one particular video, and maybe zeroing a gun for an upcoming backup gun match, and testing some new thing before I use it somewhere. Absolutely zero of it is practical, actual training. Best case, twice a month I go to a match. We have a local 2-gun match and we have a local backup
Twice a
gun match.
month is a lot.
Well, that's
For me.
that's best case. The times when I'm actually around for both of those are very slim. If I'm lucky, I'll do on average 1 a month. It's usually like maybe I'll get 2 in this month and then none for 6 weeks because I'm traveling or because I have other obligations that I have to do. I do still have an actual physical workout schedule, and that's pretty basic. It's half an hour, 45 minutes of strength training, 3 days a week. And
3 days a week.
yeah. We have a little gym in the house. So that, I used to go, years ago, we would go to a gym and that was a huge pain, and it often didn't happen because it's like, well, you get up, get dressed, go there, drive to the gym. It took way longer. We set up a little home gym, and it's, all I have to do is drag myself out of bed and walk to the gym. And then 3 days a week I run. So it's a 1 mile sprint, a 3.5K run, a 5K run. And I cycle
That's
through
awesome.
that each week.
Nice.
So it's
If I did that, I would be like top of my game.
it's 30 minutes to an hour in the morning.
Running for me is the toughest part.
As far as training goes for me, as far as the shooting side, it's about the same as you, Ian. I go to the range between once or twice a week. Try to do it at least once a week to film. It's just to film. I don't do a whole lot of training, although sometimes at the end, if I have some time, I will do sprints where I go like the firing line is at the range, which I can run around because it's just me there usually. So I'll put the pistol in the middle of the firing range, about 50 yards each way, and I will sprint 50 yards, stop, get 2 or 3 hits on target, about 15 yards away, sprint, come back to the middle, 3 shots, sprint, come back to the middle, and I'll do that maybe 10 times, and just so I'm out of breath, and then I get some shots on target and try to.
That's not bad.
Yeah, so I'll do that when I go to the range sometimes, but a lot of times I'm filming, and then by the end of the day of filming, I'm pretty tired, and it's pretty hot. But as far as working out goes, it's about similar to you. It's about between 3 and 4 times go to the gym and do lifting, and then usually 2 to 3 times a week doing running. So I'll do usually, I don't do the split in terms of distance. I usually do about 2.5 mile run, and I try to do it in under 20 minutes.
Screw you.
But
That's pretty legit.
Yeah, it is.
So I try to keep my miles under 8 minutes, and then just do. Other than that, sometimes I'll. I think that's about as far as training. I also have VR game, so sometimes it's this game called Pavlov for PS5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'll do Pavlov sometimes at the PS.
But that's
VR.
more fun than anything, isn't it?
Yeah,
Or do you have?
there's like zombies. But it does have, you do reloads, and you have to be quick with the pistol. It's with a pistol usually. Actually, you can do it with a rifle too.
Yeah, the
but-
Pablo VR is like Counter Strike. Like they even have maps from Counter Strike.
Oh really? I don't. Maybe I
I
haven't
play
played it enough,
multiplayer.
honestly.
I play multiplayer sometimes.
Oh, multiplayer. Yeah, I haven't done
It's
multiplayer.
fucking amazing because I played Counter Strike before.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I sometimes play it but I don't have time.
Yeah.
And it's like Dust 2. The same
Same-
fucking
same
map, just
map.
VR. It's
Oh,
so
that's-
awesome where you can actually go down on a knee or prone. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, just like my mind is like,
Yeah.
But for training, practice sim, it's like it's not even a game. It's actually a training thing where people can assemble stages for USPCA,
Oh, that's
IPSC,
cool.
Steel Challenge, whatever. And it's like someone designed that he's a shooter but not a programmer that much, so it's clunky. It has some problems, but it just like you shoot a stage over and over and over again, and you get improvements in places where you would never imagine. And you can test stuff like, oh, do I shoot this target first and go to this one? Do I move in this direction? Where do you do the reloads? And that helped me a lot. Because that was the boring part that I never wanted to train at home. Like doing dry fire and thinking like, oh, I will do a reload here and a reload here. I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
But then in the game, like it kind of naturally pushes you to do that. And it helped me a lot.
Yeah.
But what I would say to people, because they ask a lot of the times, like, how do you guys train because you're so good? If you're serious about improving your shooting skills, I would say dry fire. That's the basis. Like if you want to compete or you just want to improve your shooting, whatever level you are, dry fire.
Yeah.
Because the biggest excuse that I hear is like, oh yeah, you have an ammo sponsor, oh yeah, you have a lot of money, you can shoot a lot. Like it's not about shooting. The shooting part, yeah, it is important. If you want to be a top shooter or GM or whatever, you need to do also a lot of shooting because dry fire cannot like prepare you for everything, but it's the basis. Like there, you can train draws, manipulations, movement, sight acquisition, like all of the stuff, and then you just do it live with ammo to confirm.
Yeah.
Would you agree or not?
I would agree, and I think the important thing when you do your dry fire training is be very conscious of every little thing you're doing. I think what most people do, because
Slow, smooth is fine.
so I think what most people do, they just kind of go through the motions and they just pick the gun up and kind of point at a target and start pulling the trigger. Like, okay, yeah, that was good. They don't actually pay attention to every little thing that they could be doing right or wrong, and they don't make any changes. So when I dry fire, I'm actually mad most of the time because I'm trying to transition from a target to the next target as quickly as I can while still landing perfectly in the center of that target at full speed. And it's really hard to do. Like no matter how good you are, if you're trying to go as fast as you can doing anything, most of the time it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But you're striving for perfection. So that's how I stay engaged when I'm dry firing. I make the dry fire very difficult, so it's really hard to do correctly.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Maybe people don't even know how to dry fire. They just like press a trigger and do stuff.
Yeah.
You actually have to like. You come down to something that we discussed in the beginning of this podcast. If you want to improve something, for example, shooting, you don't go and shoot more. Yes, it will help with time, but it's better than you kind of divide it into small parts. So you said like transitions, that's one part. Pressing the trigger, sight acquisition, your position of the hands. Like, do you remember the video that we did, shooting drunk?
Yes.
Yeah, we did it with airsoft because of legal reasons. But what I learned from that is that I have so much muscle memory. I know how to hold a gun and press the trigger. The last one that we did, I was so drunk that I don't remember it. Oh, shit face, really. The next day I thought that we didn't film it. I was arguing with Jan because I thought that we didn't film the last one. And when I watched it, like I still hit the target. I was slower. I was obviously slower because I was like shit face drunk. But I did everything correctly. Like draw the gun, do the movements. And that doesn't come from like me shooting a lot. That comes from me dry firing when I was younger. I did a lot of dry fire because I didn't have money for ammo. I was super young. I had I didn't even have a pistol. It was my father's. And so what I could do is manipulate with the empty gun. And just like do this and this and this again and reloads. And I was trying reloads. How to, reduce time. For example, like tactical reloads, the other reloads. What if do I turn the gun? Do I do not turn it? Do I get my arm here or here? It's like you have to analyze everything. Separate it down into smaller pieces and then try it out and then combine it and then do it fluidly and so on. So yeah,
you can definitely tell if a shooter dry fires or does not by just how crisp their movements are and how efficient their movement is. If you can tell in between the different actions that are taking time to think about it, like this guy doesn't dry fire. No amount of ammo is going to make him that much better.
Yeah.
Cool.
Interesting. I should probably do more dry firing myself, honestly.
You all sound like my dentist telling me to floss.
No, you could, but like you shoot really well. Like if you want to improve, dry fire is definitely the way.
Yeah.
Oh, what I also wanted to ask, you did the one MOA challenge
Yeah.
with a PGM.
Yes.
Why did you fail?
Not enough dry fire.
So the most immediate thing I could have done to improve my group would have been to use the rear monopod on the gun. That was definitely probably
Or
the
a
biggest
bag.
shortcoming.
I
Yeah,
think-
or a bag. But honestly, that rear monopod is fine thread screw adjustable, and I think it's 90% as good as a bag. That's the
If it's not even better. Yeah.
maybe yeah. On some surfaces, it could definitely be better. That's the biggest thing. Second, probably trigger control.
You think?
I mean, there's not a whole lot else. It
Because-
doesn't matter how fast I fired because that thing has the intervention barrel that's like an inch thick. It's like a 12-pound barrel. It's not going to heat up in 10 rounds.
Even if it does, like for 10 rounds, it should be in. Because my first thought was, you're not a bad shooter. Yeah, okay, the rear bag definitely, like that. I think even with my rifle that I did it, with both the rifles, I use the rear bag. Without a rear bag, I honestly don't think I could do it.
You know what?
Like,
Next
that's
time I
the
go-
point where like it stabilizes everything. There's no movement, and still because I have the rifle shouldered, I can see like the movement just a little bit, like from breathing or from like heart rate in the rifle, you know. So that helps. But I immediately thought about your combination of rifle and ammo.
I was going to say, the other thing that could have an effect is I didn't match the ammo to the rifle. I didn't go try different brands or different hand loads and find what happened to work best in my barrel, which is a very real thing. I did use
It is.
I did use high-end match quality, allegedly match quality ammo. In fact, when I get home from this trip, I will take that out.
Is
and
that
I'll try-
308?
No, 6.5.
6.5. Yeah.
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 I'll take it back out and use the either a bag or the rear monopod and see what I can pull off with it.
Try different ammo. Just like group with different ammo because like I saw such big differences in rifles, and it's not like one thing is okay, what's your twist rate, then which bullets, which like grains are maybe appropriate, then you have the shape of the bullet, and then you have different kind of ammo manufacturers, different tiers of ammo, like, oh, this is match grade, this is this. And for my rifles, the ones that I really shoot precision, makes such a big difference.
So I don't really do any precision shooting on any sort of regular basis. So
Yeah, but the thing is that I would not, like, from everything, I would not blame your trigger press, because you're a good shooter, and with the sniper rifle, I always want to call it sniper rifle, with the precision rifle, like, are you slapping the trigger? What are you doing with it? It's really hard to mess it up unless you're doing something like this, you know. Essentially, you have a grip, and you're just trying to pull the trigger like back. I don't think you can move it that much, especially with a PGM, because like that thing is heavy as hell.
I guess what I'm thinking is the crosshairs are still moving when I'm pulling the trigger, and it's not. I'm not getting a trigger release
rear back
at the exact moment. that they're saying.
No. For me, when I did it, the crosswires were steady. I was steady, and then I was just doing.
So did you get one MOA?
Oh yeah, of course.
Wait,
with
I'm definitely
so-
redoing
with the
till I get it.
Context? Can I get some context on what the 108
Oh,
challenge is?
Bloke and I kind of cooperated, and we did one MOA all day challenge, and it comes from all of the comments of keyboard commandos, couch commandos, like people claiming that their hunting rifle can do one MOA all day, and kind of the challenge is that you do one 10-round grouping, and
How
it has
long?
to be
How distance?
50 yards or longer.
yeah,
right?
from 50 yards or longer. You know what MOA is?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
yeah.
minute
Yeah,
of
yeah,
action.
yeah, yeah.
Some people don't know.
Yeah.
Like some people.
Yeah, it was
claim
hilarious.
all-
You had to
yeah.
have like 3 edited pinned comments explaining what MOA
Yeah,
was.
Yeah. No. I know what that is. I just wasn't sure what the distance was, and I know what 108 MOA. I figured it was obviously, but I just didn't know the context of how it got together. If it was actual competition or something like that. But
Yeah, and
makes
you
sense.
post a video of it, and
Got it.
there are some other limitations, but essentially my point was, I told this to Bloke and he agrees, like, just let's try to get as many submissions as possible, even if they're not inside regulation, because my bolt action rifle, The Savage 308 is in MDT chassis, aluminum chassis,
Nice.
and it's way too heavy. I think the limit is 4.7 kilos.
It's about 10 and a half pounds.
That one is 7 kilos, so
Oh god.
way over.
Yeah,
But honestly, without a chassis, it would not shoot less than 1 MOA because it came with a very wobbly, soft stock from Savage. He was shooting 1.4 MOA. Then I changed the stock. It was sub MOA with 5-shot groupings, and then even I did a step further, which MDT themselves said it's not needed, but I bedded the aluminum chassis, and that also worked. So now with 5-shot groups, I have 0.34, 0.38 MOA groupings. 5 shots, really small.
Wow.
And the one that I did with the 10-shot groups, it was the first 8 rounds were inside 0.6 MOA, and the last 2 were of course like out a bit. And it was just like 0.8 MOA. But I honestly think this is because the barrel was starting to heat up. It was first stringing a bit up, like first 3 were just saying hold, then it started to go like this, and the last one were a bit out.
Yeah, I think the number of actual sub-MOA rifles is very, very few. But everyone likes to call their rifle a sub-MOA rifle.
Yeah, that's the excuse. That a lot of people want to say, like they write, oh yeah, my rifle is sub-MOA, but I am not. I cannot shoot that as well as my rifle does.
Because I was thinking about doing the challenge. Like, I don't know if I even have a sub-MOA rifle, like on a perfect day. Like, shooting off of like a lead sled or something.
Yeah, it's true. Even like I was at AREX when we tested not just rifle, just barrel. For example, a barrel for the AKB-15, it was clamped into a concrete table and some machine, and we were like just hand loading the rounds and sending it, and still the accuracy was not like one hole. It depends a lot on the proper match, of course, the quality of the barrel, and then the match of the ammo to the barrel, and then all the other factors.
Yeah, the closest rifle I'd have to being able to successfully do that challenge is way overweight.
Which one?
It's a CG80. It's like an old school Swedish target rifle converted from Mauser 96.
You should try it with it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Do you still have you had Accuracy International?
I sold it.
That one should do it.
Yeah, that'll do it. But I don't have it anymore.
Someone shot a really good group, and he shot it from his truck or something.
Those guns are laser beams.
Yeah.
Like I remember shooting
with the right ammo.
Even if
I saw one group like this.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Ammo. I shot like PPU hunting ammo through it one time, and it shot a really really tight group. Like it was like not quite one MOA, but like really close. That's with like pretty.
PPU, like some people like PPU ammo. I have really bad experience.
It depends on the cartridge, I think. I've had good luck with some cartridges, like in 303, but then like really bad luck in 308 and stuff.
Same for me. Their match 308 ammo was worse than German surplus from 80s from my rifle. It could be just the rifle and ammo mismatch. Yeah. But and then I got some pistol ammo from them. And I got unburned powder in the gun and on my hands when I was shooting the pistol.
Okay.
I was like, what?
I haven't had that yet. I've had pretty good luck with their pistol ammo, but I hand load now.
Henry has an M41B Swedish sniper.
You know where he got it from?
From you? I was trying to convince him to do the challenge with that, because I'd love to see what he could do with that rifle.
But that gun's been bubbled a bit, which is how I found it. And I knew he was looking for one, and it was at a really good price.
Okay.
But it needs a little bit of work.
We didn't take another break. How was that?
Oh, do we need to take a break?
No?
All right. I have 2 other questions here. So like I said, we had a question about tactical shooting versus IPSC, and we covered that in extreme depth. Stance Nixon says, left-handed firearms. If you can find it, do you buy pre-built or build your own, or modify an existing right-handed firearm? Now, I think I'm the only left-handed person here.
Correct.
Is that?
Yep.
So my answer is pretty simple. Like, I don't use left-handed firearms. There are only a few guns I've ever run into as a lefty that have actually given me problems. And actually they're, well, aside from bullpups that are not ambidextrous, There are primarily ARs that don't have brass deflectors, where if you're shooting it right-handed, no big deal, but if you're shooting it left-handed, the brass comes back at such a sharp angle that it bounces off your face. And I don't really have a solution to those because they're mostly older historical guns, and I'm not going to modify one of those. But in my regular shooting, like bolt action rifles, I've just learned the normal thing is you hold sport hand and you operate with the trigger hand. I just do it the opposite. I hold with the trigger and I operate with my support hand.
Got it. Isn't there a company that makes ARs specific lefty?
Stag Arms
Stag Arms.
makes a completely left-hand mirrored AR.
Interesting.
And I've actually never owned one.
Oh,
I have an AOG with a left ejecting bolt.
Yeah.
I'll bring it out tomorrow. We'll shoot it. One of my ideas is that we need to do a competition, like, I don't know, fast reload, and then we do AK, AR, and AUG maybe, and like we take turns and see who's the fastest or something.
that'd be fun.
So, Calvin, you ever paid any attention to
No,
left-handed
I don't
guns?
need that stuff. Now, I found a lot of guns that are ambi, they've ended up being worse than just a right-handed gun. Because you have controls on both sides, so now when the gun's slung, you're hitting the mag release on the other side, and just shit falls out of it, and stuff stops working.
I have noticed a lot of ambi ARs on the left side, you have bolt release, bolt lock, magazine release, all in about this much vertical space. And it's like, if someone released just a brand new concept rifle with that, we would all complain about, like, it's stupid that those controls are so tight together and so small and so easily mismanipulated.
So you go for the bolt release and you drop the mag or something like that. Yeah.
Sometimes can happen, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so my other one is from Pop Pops. Thank you, Pop Pops, on Patreon, who is asking about military air rifles. Now, he says the Windbukse is the only issued repeating military air rifle. Not sure if he's referring to the Giordoni or something else, which was issued and used.
Well, that's very, very old.
Oh yeah, this is late 1700s era. With a claimed lethal range of 100 meters and a roughly 20 shot capacity, which it did have, and they were effective, but they were expensive, and the maintenance level was quite high, and there were a lot of logistical, practical reasons why they didn't make good military firearms. However, 150 years later, do air rifles have a tactical or training role in the restricted world of Europe?
Maybe training role, because it's easier to own a very capable air rifle, just paper-wise and bureaucracy-wise, than 22 long rifle. But at the end, it's cheaper and better if you go for a 22 long rifle, do the papers and do the 22 long rifle. These like high performance air rifles are also super expensive. And you have like very capable air rifles, like by accuracy, they're actually sometimes even more accurate than normal guns, especially 22 long rifle, because they can reduce the standard deviation of velocity, and the pellets can be like round or whatever shape they want it to, and there's no powder, but they regulate the amount of pressure in air precisely. And so you have like F-class with air rifles now also. Like it's so accurate that they have to shoot at very long distances so they can actually distinguish the hole from the, it's like, are there more hits or just one hit? You also have very powerful air rifles. You probably know, I think the first ones came up in the States, where you have a 45, 50 caliber, where you can shoot a pig and kill a pig without an issue. I actually had a chance to shoot with one in Slovenia, but it has no benefits other than it's easier to get in Europe legally, but it's super expensive. You need to fill it up and with air, and you have to have some system to kind of fill it up and top it up. But it's also super loud because it's on the brink of being supersonic, and just the amount of air that's dumped out of the barrel, it's an overpressure. It's like the same as shooting with a 9mm gun. You need to have air protection. I was stupid and shot it without air protection in an indoor range. Not good at all. So I don't see any upsides. I know that Slovenian military uses some kind of air system They have a very small enclosed shooting range in one of the barracks that I was in, and they have a converted F2000 and a Beretta that kind of feeds with air or something like that. So you have the recoil, the function of the gun, and I think it shoots lasers or something. So it's just for training.
Okay.
So that's the best use of a air gun that I would could imagine in military use.
I think felons can own air guns in the States, which is another reason why you might want an air gun, I guess, if you're,
If you're a felon.
Yeah. Well, I'm led to believe that felons, if they've served their time, should be able to access firearms, real firearms. Because at that point, why are we even letting them in society if they're not able to be trusted with firearms?
Okay, that's an interesting information. So you do not have a period when the felony is erased?
So it's depending on the case, I think you can get your rights back eventually.
It is legally possible, but in many cases there is no bureaucratic system set up to do it, so it is practically impossible.
Yeah.
As a felon, you also lose your right to vote
Which is insane.
in the U.S.
Which is, I think.
Wait, but okay, so
It's
many
crazy.
questions. Do I understand correctly? You can vote without an ID in the in US?
In some jurisdictions.
Okay.
That is
okay.
such a deep topic.
Okay.
Very different topic than air guns in the military.
Yeah.
So-
Anyway. Yeah. It's kind of backwards in many ways. Yeah.
But yeah, air guns are not legally firearms,
Yes.
and there are no... Now, there's a distinction here between firearms and weapons. So if you look at, say, reproduction black powder percussion revolvers are also not legally firearms.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that in all jurisdictions you can concealed carry one without a permit, because the state doesn't just say you can't carry a firearm according to federal definition. They're going to have a specific law that will almost always dictate that, you can have an antique percussion gun. If you couldn't carry a regular gun, you probably can't carry that either.
Yeah. Interesting.
Do you have more questions? Or okay, because here I have one question, not connected to air guns, but you have states now that legalized marijuana, right?
Yes.
But federally, it's still on the class list, right? Under forbidden substances.
Schedule 1.
Yeah,
which
I
is
believe
the
they
highest.
recently voted that it was going to be removed from Schedule 1.
It was announced.
Announced, yes.
But it is still, possession is prohibited without going through some legal process that you specifically are allowed to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I heard that, I don't know specifics,
so-
but even if you get the medicinal one,
Right.
if it goes into the system, you kind of are not allowed to own guns. Like ATF can take your guns.
So
because of it.
Yes.
Marijuana is prohibited at the federal level. States that allow it at the state level, that doesn't make it federally legal. It's just the federal government doesn't have enforcement agents actually running around looking for people with marijuana. The federal government is largely dependent on state police finding people with marijuana, and then they get charged with a state crime, and if the feds want to prosecute them for the same crime at the federal level, they can do that.
Yes.
So without any federal enforcement, if the state legalizes it, essentially there's no risk that you're going to get arrested by the feds for having it.
Unless
However-
you're in the system.
Well, however, you cannot legally complete a background check in the U.S. if you are a user of an illegal substance.
Yes, and
So-
a lawful user of.
Right.
That's what the word is.
Exactly, yeah. So if, I'm going out on a little bit of a limb here, it does not prohibit possession. It prohibits, you have broken the law if you lie on a 4473 background check form. If you use marijuana or have marijuana and you say that you do, the gun, you will be denied the right / whatever. You'll be denied your transfer and you won't be able to buy a gun from a dealer. If you say you don't, but you actually do, you've committed a federal crime. And if they find out, then you're in trouble. And where this, the thing that I see from gun shop owners is when you have to present an ID in order to fill out this background check. And when people come in and they present their medical marijuana card as their ID,
Oh God.
Yeah.
gun shop owners are like you have just self-denied yourself.
Yes. For the record, I mean, personally, I think that law is really stupid.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, shocker. But that is the law. I mean, all of my auto sears are medicinal, so I'm usually okay.
Are you just referring to the part where the background check is dependent upon someone honestly answering the question of, are you a felon who plans to shoot someone with this gun? Like,
Yeah,
come on.
yeah.
This is a
Yeah.
Kafkaesque, stupid sort of.
Yeah.
Like, I get background checks. The background check's real, but the stupid list of questions that I fill out is like...
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, and just making it. I mean, marijuana especially, but I mean, this gets into more of a philosophical, political discussion about drugs. But I just think.
Yeah,
that,
but I think that's an interesting discussion.
Yeah, I mean,
What's your take on it?
Personally, I
Wind up another data card on the camera.
yeah. Well, I mean, personally, I believe that all drugs should be, at the very least, decriminalized, but in my opinion, should just be legal, because ultimately you're not going to stop people. It's not enough of a deterrent because it's illegal to stop people from using drugs. And I just think what people put in their bodies should be their own choice, and I just don't believe in restricting one's decisions or whatever by penalizing them in a legal way to not. I think we should put some effort into, if people want to get help for their addictions, offer some ways for people to get off of drugs in a more effective way than putting them in prison for being addicted to drugs.
So you're kind of libertarian in that way?
I guess that would be a traditionally libertarian take, maybe. I don't know.
I have almost the same take, because one of the arguments is always like, oh yeah, do you want to make heroin legal? Like, if people that want to do heroin
Yes.
are doing heroin,
Yes.
they can find, like, right now, why I'm asking this, because there's actually an issue in Europe. There are two other substances coming in, fentanyl, of course.
Yeah.
So we are
Dealing
right
with that.
behind you guys now.
Yeah.
And some other substance. And the thing with fentanyl itself is not that damaging. People don't know that. It's just a very, very powerful chemical. It's an opioid.
Yep.
Opioid.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't know, like much more powerful than morphine. Like I think
Yes.
by an
100
about
times.
1,000.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
really, really more powerful.
Yeah.
And people that die from fentanyl die from an overdose because they don't know that the drug was laced with the fentanyl.
Yes.
And just like because they ingest so much, they stop breathing. They're like
Yeah.
their whole muscles go relaxed,
Yeah.
and they stop breathing, and their heart stop working, and they die.
Yeah.
And the thing is that why fentanyl is now becoming so spread up is because I think it's the main producer is China. And it's super cheap to produce and super potent. Like a drop of it of like pure fentanyl is so potent that you get it on your skin and you would get overdose.
Yeah.
And that's it's mixed up in drugs, and then now it's coming in. And why people mix it in other drugs is because heroin is quite expensive towards fentanyl.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if they mix heroin and fentanyl, like the user still get a super strong high, but it's cheaper to sell.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's all because of
Yeah,
of illegal drug trade.
Yes,
You know?
because people are cutting the drugs
Yep.
with fentanyl
Yeah.
because they're able to get the euphoria with less material actual.
Yeah,
and the
but
fentanyl's
if we look at this argument, like, oh yeah, if you make, I don't know, cocaine legal, if you make heroin legal, like, do you really think that people will just go to a store and buy heroin and just like
put all of it
Yeah.
in their system and
I
overdose on purpose?
really don't think so. I really don't think so. And people that already want to do drugs, they are doing drugs.
Yes.
You can get drugs almost anywhere. You know?
Yes.
No, I think we should have like Asian drug enforcement, where you get executed for like any small amount you have. No, I'm-
Calvin's on the opposite
It's
side
nothing.
of
I-
Singapore.
So like I legit like don't give a fuck. I just don't want it to affect me. But I also don't know enough to know what kind of unforeseen consequences there are if we do make it completely legal. Just 'cause I haven't looked into it.
So you know the IPSC guys who will like come cock the hammer on your gun to get you DQ'd? What if they could just get you summarily executed?
By placing fentanyl.
Third
in
time
my
you beat
pocket.
me in the match for a little fentanyl in your range bag there.
Well, what's your take on it, Ian?
Oh, I have opinions on this, but we don't need to go into that.
Okay. All
He
right.
doesn't want to.
Respect. Yeah, I mean, I just think that in the case of the really hard drugs, obviously these things are not great things for people to be doing, obviously, for their bodies, right? For just a number of things, whether it's like under the influence of various substances while operating vehicles, losing your entire like life and your family and all those things. There's so many horrible things about drugs that are, really tear families apart. Addiction is horrible. I've had friends die from fentanyl overdoses. It's really intense. And instead of putting the energy towards punishment towards those people, and I mean, obviously fentanyl dealers, it's not. I don't have great, heartwarming feelings towards those kinds of people, obviously, and particularly the ones that are lacing drugs and not telling people, and that just happens. But to send it underground feels like it's like there can't be much more damage done than it already has. So
that's a really good point, because we already have one side of the story. Like, what happens if we try to restrict it, if we try to battle, like US is even sending forces to Mexico and Colombia to help and like directly target the producers and cartels, and it's not working.
Well, the easiest way to get rid of the cartel would be to manufacture it ourselves and sell it ourselves and tax it.
Yeah, that's one point, but also the other point, like I think US is just very restrictive on drugs.
Yeah.
And then you have Europe, like the biggest positive example that I heard was from Netherlands.
Portugal.
Oh, also Portugal. Yeah, the whole country.
Yeah.
But also Netherlands, like they have legalized marijuana.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In like those coffee shops.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is that they also like people come there and do also a lot of other drugs.
Yeah, mushrooms and stuff.
And I don't know how many years now it is ago. Like I think UK tourists came there, bought a bag of what they thought was coke. It was sold as coke, but it was actually heroin, quite pure heroin, or heroin was mixed with coke.
Wow.
Like a lot of people. Like, I don't know. I think 5 or 6 people died because of that.
Wow.
And what their police did is they started with a public campaign that they have free testing of the drugs at the police station, and it's not like a sting operation as they do in the US, because I heard about those. No, like tourists come in, they bring a sample and say like, look, I got this, whatever. They don't ask, they test it and say like, oh, this is like this and this and this and this. It's dangerous, not dangerous, or whatever. Like we do not recommend.
Yeah.
And that saved, I think, I don't know how many lives they have the statistic and everything, but like, oh yeah, this is pure fentanyl. Oh shit, this is like rat poison, whatever. Don't eat that.
Yeah.
And that saved more lives than just like battling everyone like and putting tourists in jail or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think the perception for a lot of people in the U.S. that are opposed to making it legal is that it's going to be somehow encouraged and like forced upon, like you said, Calvin, like become like, oh, and now we're going to be starting to like advertise heroin to kids and stuff. And it's like, I'm totally against that. Like, I'm not for promoting drug use of any kind, like whether even if it's like marijuana or alcohol, frankly. But we already do that in our culture with alcohol. But it's like just not putting the resources towards extreme like punishment for using it. That's more
maybe decriminalization of hard drugs would be better than just like legalization, because then you have an issue with just with incentive trying to sell drugs. Like if private companies can come in and kind of like they make money by selling more drugs, that would also not be a good thing.
Do you think so versus the cartels selling?
Would be better. Would be definitely
Yeah.
better, because if you have locally produced, completely pure,
Yeah.
I don't know, cocaine.
And you know exactly what's in it. Exactly.
exactly.
And there's a regulatory body that makes sure that it's not laced with anything. To me,
It's
Registered organic.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
organic.
similar thing with alcohol. I don't know if you guys. Well, you had moonshiners, right?
Yeah, people went blind and stuff. 'Cause
yeah.
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 But even in Europe,
So-
like people died because there was I think in Austria they sell wine or something that was what did they use? Some kind of strange isopropyl, some kind of alcohol
God.
to improve the sweetness or whatever of the
God.
wine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people died
It
because
is,
of that.
it is worth pointing out that a lot of that happens because of the taxation level.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we had moonshiners sometimes because alcohol was prohibited, but other times because it was just taxed.
Yeah.
And if you make it out back in the shed and don't tell the law, then you don't have to pay the tax.
Yes.
And that has
Yes.
negative incentives.
Yeah, so there's negatives to the taxing of it too. I mean, I think
So fuck
anytime
taxes.
yeah. fuck
Oh yeah,
taxes.
I think we can all agree on that.
Anytime you shove something underground, though, that's when you run into, I think, the most problems.
Yeah.
When you force it to have a criminal underworld, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, because there's no regulations.
Yeah.
Say no to drugs.
Say no to drugs. Don't do drugs. But also, yeah, I disagree with how we handle it in the U.S., but particularly with guns too. I don't think that's because someone smokes weed, they should be denied the access to firearms or alcohol or any other.
Great discussion about air rifles.
And on this bombshell, we will end this podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and bye-bye.